Прийшли окупанти до нас в Україну, форма новенька, воєнні машини, та трохи поплавився їх інвентар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російські танкісти сховались в кущі, щоб лаптем посьорбати довбані щі, та трохи у чах перегрівся навар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Приперли зі сходу до нас барани для восстановлення
великої страни.
Найкращий пастух баранячих отар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Їх доводи всяке озброєння різне, потужні ракети, машини залізні, у нас на всі доводи є коментар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Вони захопити хотіли нас зразу, а ми зачаїли на орків образу з російських бандитів, робить примар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російська поліція справи заводить, там вбивцю рашистів ніяк не знаходить, хто винен, що в нашому полі глухар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Веде пропаганду кремлівський урод, слова пропаганди ковтає народ, тепер нове слово знає цар.
Байрактар.
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 Yes.
The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
Русский военный корабль. Предлагаю сложить оружие и сдаться. Русский военный корабль, иди нахуй.
Наші
Hello, everyone. I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 731 of the news, and it's good to see you all once again. And Russia's little 3-day war just turned into a multi-year war as of today, so it's good to see you all once again.
And, of course, we are going to be covering the past 24 hours of the news of the war in Ukraine. We finally got news today that a Russian general has been killed by Ukrainian forces, and we also got to hear that apparently the Russians are not doing all too well on the battlefield, and they're once again getting beasted on by the Ukrainian military whenever they're trying to conduct an offensive. It has been a really interesting day today, especially on the front lines of Ukraine and even inside the Russian Federation, with some major follow-ups to some of the breaking news that we got last night. And right now, this is once again doubly breaking news because it's really working off of everything that we saw yesterday. It is absolutely incredible. And as the night passed last night and we moved on into today, today is day one of the third year of the war in Ukraine. Yesterday was the very end of the second year and moving on into the third, and now today is that actual third year. It was absolutely insane because I actually did something fairly interesting before the stream tonight, which is I sat there and I looked at all of the streams that have run, and I'll show this to y'all really quickly because this was absolutely bizarre to me. So here is the YouTube studio, what I see on my end behind the scenes. And this is the stream that we ran last night, the 24th of February and the 23rd of February, because once they run over midnight, our local time, they get clocked in as being the next day's stream. So what was wild about this is that when I click date up here, and we go all the way back to the very first streams that this channel ran for the war, right there's February 23rd, right below this gaming stream that I've told you all about last night that got into the Start the War stream. That right there was the first stream ever that actually ran on this channel about the invasion of Ukraine. Literally on the very day that the invasion began, on the very hour that the invasion began, I was here on this channel covering it. And now today, we have once again passed from the 23rd of February into the 24th, which means that if this was 2 years ago, I would be running a live stream right now called Ukraine Holds. Current info with the Enforcer, day one. Day one. So this is actually day one of the war 3 years later. It's actually wild to think about it like that. But I wanted to show you all that because that is how long we've been on air. And, you know, sometimes it's good to see the actual physical representation of that rather than just hearing about that in the background. But still, moving on from that, we got to hear a lot more about the Lipetsk metallurgical plant, or more so, the largest steel plant within the Russian Federation today. This plant is most likely going to be closed for the next 4 days. And this single metallurgical plant within Russia produces 20% of the Russian Federation's steel, meaning that 1 out of every 5 tons of steel made in Russia comes out of this single factory right here. That is huge, and we also got to finally see today from the Ukrainian armed forces real video confirmation of one of their kamikaze drones lifting off to make its way to the target. Here's the clip of that drone lifting off and going towards Lipetsk. It's a little loud. But there it goes, lifting off on its way.
Jeez, what was that being recorded with?
I think that was being recorded during Hurricane Katrina from the sounds of it, but nevertheless, we did get to see their little drone taking off, and I gotta say, it is once again adding complete verification now to the news that we reported yesterday that the Ukrainians were the ones to launch kamikaze drones that flew all the way to Lipetsk and blew up the oil, well, not the oil refinery, I'm so used to it being an oil refinery, I'm just saying that out of habit now, but blew up the largest steel plant within Russia. Now, something else that I'd like to point out is that Lipetsk is a pretty good ways into Russia from where the Ukrainians are. And I'm going to quickly do this. We're going to take a ruler out and click right there, and we're going to move all the way to Lipetsk. The Lipetsk metallurgical plant, from the closest area in Ukraine all the way out to the factory itself, is 212 miles away, which is quite the distance. Of course, we saw the Ukrainian strike all the way up at Ust-Luga, which is a major oil port outside of St. Petersburg, and that still, on record, is the longest-range drone strike to have succeeded at reaching its target and destroying it. But something else that's very interesting to note about this is that Ukraine's kamikaze drones were launched from inside of the territory of Ukraine flew over nearly 215 miles of Russian territory without being detected by Russian air defense and ended up successfully hitting their targets and destroying them. These drones in particular, from what we understand, fly several hundred feet above the tree line to make sure that they are able to keep good reception and signal with their operator inside of Ukraine, meaning that these drones would technically probably show up on some kind of a radar somewhere. Now that is important because where the A-50 went down the other day, we get a pretty good idea of where a Ukrainian air defense system could have been and how far away that was. So let me pull out a ruler here, and we can see that this was about 190 miles away where that A-50 command aircraft went down 24 hours ago. And going off of that, that is a very similar distance to the distance that that Ukrainian kamikaze drone was able to fly and not be detected by air defense. In fact, several drones flew to the Lipetsk steel plant and were not detected by air defense whatsoever. And I have to bring this up because after our stream ran last night, and I brought up the notion that it wasn't the Ukrainians that shot down the aircraft, it was the Russians that shot down their own command plane, half of Twitter is now saying that the command plane was shot down by the Russians, and the other half is still sticking with the original story that the command aircraft was shot down by Ukraine, and the video footage that we saw of the Russians firing their air defense was actually air defense missiles that were meant to try and destroy the incoming Ukrainian missiles. Now, this is something that we still have to talk about a really good bit in a lot of detail even tonight, because there has been a lot of major discussion about what really went down during that A-50 crash. But one thing that we've gotten to know before I get into the deep analysis of what really happened, one thing that we do know fairly for certain at this point is that there was a specific Russian general, a major general, that was on board the A-50 that crashed. This is Valery Borovikov, and he was probably one of the guys that ended up getting killed on that A-50. Now that's some pretty big news right there, I gotta say. Hopefully,
you know what else is some big news as well? I was just pausing for a second. Nightbot has returned to the stream of all things as well while you're talking. How about that?
What do you know? Welcome back to the Nightbot. Everyone say hello to Nightbot. Y'all all hate it, but it's a necessity of the channel. I don't know why I'm having such a hard time talking. I think, Matthew, it's because
caffeine, man.
Yeah, I overdosed on coffee before the stream. But still, beyond that, we are able to know that a high-up Russian commander ended up dying today, well, dying yesterday, inside of the plane. But I have to get into the deep analysis here of what happened to the A-50 because there's still a lot of questions going around, and nobody has a clear answer. It's half and half these days, people saying on Twitter that it was friendly fire from the Russians, and the other half saying it was the Ukrainians that shot it down. Now, to go through a little bit of analysis here, and let me go get an S-200 missile and show y'all what this thing is. And let's see here. Let me make sure I can try and get y'all some actual specs on this thing. Maximum range. We're looking for the range. It's not saying on that one. So let me see if I can find us something that'll tell us the range of the S-200. Let's see here. Wow, there is really not a lot of information on the range. But nevertheless, I'm going to try and share with you all a little bit of information and details about the S-200 missile, because there is a story, this is the story that's officially coming out from the Ukrainian side, that they launched an S-200 missile at the A-50 from nearly 200 miles away, and it ended up not only making it all the way to the A-50, but also ended up destroying the A-50 and shooting it down. The Russians also seem to be trying to go with a story as well, and they're actually suppressing the story, which tells me it's probably the more true story, that the Russians shot down their own A-50. So going off of that, I'll show y'all what the S-200 looks like, because a lot of people have been thinking probably that this is a very advanced and modern missile, or at least something that would be considered modern. But this right here is an S-200 missile on display at a Ukrainian air museum in Vinnytsia. This thing was introduced into Soviet service in 1967 and was retired from Soviet service, I believe, before the collapse of the USSR. And let me see if I can find that, because from what I understand, the Russians retired the system. They retired it back in 2014, and then it was starting to be phased out in the 1980s by the Soviet Union. So you can kind of get the idea that this thing is well past its actual lifespan. Even by the Soviet Union's accounts, they were already trying to retire this thing before the Soviet Union collapsed. the idea of the Ukrainians being able to modify this thing to be long range is not out of the question. We actually have seen S-200s that have been heavily modified targeting the Crimean Bridge. But the issue with that, however, is that none of those S-200s actually ended up hitting the Crimean Bridge. All of them were detected by Russian air defense and shot down well before they ever hit the Crimean Bridge, letting us know that these S-200s, while having at least the range as a cruise missile for the most part, or really a ballistic missile, whatever you would like to call it, they still are easily detectable and very easy to shoot down. We do have that information way back when there was an S-200 attack that occurred on the Kerch Bridge about 5 months ago, and it was not successful at all. I believe the Ukrainians launched something like 8 S-200s. None of them made it to the bridge. All of them were shot down and detected before they ever even made it. And I'd also like to add a little bit of extra detail to that story as well that makes it a lot more unlikely that an S-200 could have hit the A-50. During the Crimean Bridge attempt and attack, these S-200s were estimated to be flying at an altitude of 300 to 500 feet above sea level during their entire flight path. So as far as radars and anti-air defenses are concerned, these missiles were flying practically on the ground towards their targets. The fact that the Russian air defense was able to pick them up over the Sea of Azov and shoot them down well before they ever made it to the bridge, I believe the closest one was shot down about 12 to 24 miles away, somewhere within that window, towards the bridge, which is still a good ways away from it. The idea of this S-200 being able to be launched at 190 to 200 miles away and then fly all the way to the A-50 and then somehow be able to target it and shoot it down is also very unlikely. To try and explain a little bit more about why that would be unlikely, adding off of what I just talked about with the ground attack attempt by the S-200 missiles on the Crimean Bridge, the S-200 is a very old missile. And while you can upgrade the computer systems inside of the S-200, its targeting acquisition systems, all that stuff, there's only so far that you can really push an antiquated missile like this before you really reach the peak of what it's able to do. And I don't believe for a second that the S-200 could have been able to fly 190 to 200 miles, even if it was able to keep up with the speed, even if it had enough fuel somehow to keep up a high speed for nearly 200 miles, where it wouldn't have been detected and shot down. And also, it is a little bizarre. Now, this is kind of the bizarre part to me. Not really a lot of radar systems in the world can pick up aircraft that are flying hundreds of miles away. It's actually fairly difficult for an active radar system, which is what the armed forces of Ukraine uses, to be able to pick up and detect an aircraft that far. There are passive radar systems, but those are usually not used heavily by armed forces. It's usually the active radar systems that are used. And Ukraine probably does not have a radar system, and of course I'm saying probably because we don't really know for certain at this point, but from what we understand, Ukraine probably does not have a radar system that would be able to pick up this A-50 from over 200 miles away, probably 250 to 260 miles away, because they're probably placing the radar system a good ways away from their launchers, because, of course, the launchers might be able to easily be close to the front lines, but you usually want your radar system for your SAM battery a little bit farther back, so that way it's not as big a target, because it's the most important part of the battery. But the fact that they're saying that it would have been able to pick up the A-50, and not only that, guide in nearly a 60 to 70-year-old missile onto that A-50 and not get shot down, the missile not get shot down in that process, and end up hitting the A-50 is a pretty far-fetched story. And I don't mean to shoot it down because the Ukrainians are still going with us today. That's their official claim, is that a modified S-200 shot down the A-50, and it also seems like the Russians are going with it as well. But to be quite honest with everyone, I do not believe for a single moment that the Russians are telling the truth on that. We have always seen up till this point that the Russians will contradict everything that the Ukrainians claim to have destroyed if it was destroyed. The Moskva was sunk. The Russians claimed it was not sunk for weeks. The Kilo-class submarine was destroyed in dry dock. The Russians insisted it only took minor damage until video evidence came out confirming it was destroyed. It is very odd, incredibly odd, that the Russians would immediately come out within the hour of that A-50 being shot down, if it really was shot down by the Ukrainians, and actually confirmed that on an official level. That is once again adding, in my opinion, that level of unbelievability that makes me think that it was Russian friendly fire that ended up shooting down the A-50. It was not actually an S-200 that was heavily modified that was able to be guided into its target. And also,
really, if you really think about it, in reality, if Ukraine wasn't really sure how it got shot down, or they sort of just took a guess at it, I wonder which version is better. Ukraine claiming they shot it down, or making the Russians look much more incompetent by saying that they actually shot it down, which appears to be the truth.
I would say, I don't really know. I mean, that's a good question, because the Ukrainians would like to claim that they're able to do that. And whether they did or didn't, the Russians will work off of what really happened, because they probably have a good understanding at this point whether it was friendly fire or not. But if it was friendly fire, and I would have to say it's more likely so that it is than it isn't, that is something very interesting. Also, another thing that I like to point out is that from what we saw, and I'll show you all this footage again, because I want to make sure that we are as thorough as possible with our analysis here, so that way I'm not just talking, nothing but gibberish. I want to show you all these two videos again. Actually, not that one. It's this one down here. And let me show you all this. So, I want to show you all something very important that I actually did not point out yesterday. That is really important for me to point out. These videos were actually filmed on two opposite sides of the A-50. This video was actually filmed to the south, further south of where the A-50 was flying. The air defense battery that we're watching right here, that fires the missile, is actually north of the A-50 and closer to Ukraine than the other villager that was filming from the southern side of the aircraft's flight path. That is something very important, because if it was a Ukrainian S-200 that was flying in, it would have flown in from somewhere near the Zaporizhia Oblast, or maybe even Kherson, and it would have flown over the Azov Sea and towards the A-50, which is somewhere around Novominskaya, somewhere in that area. We know that the Yesk airfield does have an air defense perimeter around it, made up of S-300 air defense systems, and maybe even some Pantsers as well. And if that missile came in from the Kherson direction, which is highly unlikely, or if it came in from the Zaporizhia direction, which is very likely, that air defense system, which is visibly to the northern side of this A-50 in this footage, would have shot this missile down before it made it close to the A-50, because in this clip, you're going to see that the missile doesn't launch and then turn northwards to go towards the Sea of Azov and intercept the incoming missile. It actually is fired and then starts heading south towards the A-50. So, let me show you that again, because it's very important to always have backup of what I'm saying here. So you can see the aircraft flying. It is flying from, I believe it's west to east, and so this is on the northern side. And there goes the missile flying towards the south, not towards the north. So what would have to be said is that, because people are saying that the Russians picked up the Ukrainian missiles that were incoming and tried to shoot them down, what that story would then be is that they were easily picking up the missiles. Because if they were able to fire their own air defense at it, they would have easily been able to identify that that missile was coming in well before it got to the A-50, and they would have fired the missile towards the north and shot it down before it even got that close. So now, if you try to make the Ukrainian story work where they shot it down, they're now going to have to say the Russian radar did not pick up the missile for a very long distance until it had actually flown all the way over the air defense battery that we're watching in this clip and was pretty much at the A-50 itself. So, going off of that, it seems like a very unlikely story, and I wanted to make sure to go over that again with all of y'all tonight, because so many people have been very confused and trying to work off of official reports and a whole bunch of other stuff when we actually just have the video footage here in front of us, and it's very clear and easy to see what really did happen once you piece it all together and use a little bit of logic to put together the videos that we're watching, what happened and what went down. It's still not entirely impossible for the Ukrainians to shot down that A-50, but the percentage of likelihood of that being the case versus the Russians having the ability to shoot down their own A-50 and doing that is very slim. It's a much higher chance that the Russians shot down their own A-50. They certainly had the ability to do it, and the Ukrainians certainly have a very small chance of being able to shoot down the plane. So going off of that, I hope we were able to circle around to that and address that the best I can, at least with everything we have as far as all of the information, all of the sources, and everything else. But it is time for us to move on into Germany, because there's been some really breaking news today coming out of Germany. The Germans have actually allowed for the defense companies within the within the Republic of Germany, or the Federal Republic of Germany, to offer for sale a tank that has only been seen on the practice grounds. This is a tank that many people love, and they think it's one of the coolest ones to come out in the modern day. I'm going to be showing y'all this thing because it is truly cool. The Germans are offering the KF-51 Panther to the Ukrainians. Here's the video made by Rheinmetall to advertise the KF-51.
The Panther KF-51, the all-new and improved war machine.
And look at this. It's just a beautiful tank.
Man, that is nice. Jeez. Man, who hurt Rheinmetall like that?
Oh man, this thing is really cool.
Man, that's sick. It really has no business looking that good as a war machine. Like that's like car levels of design.
I mean, it's beautiful. It really is an amazing tank. And it's just ripping through the training grounds in this clip. Beautiful stuff. Oh, that
Oh,
is
look
really
at that
cool.
slow-mo. Have you ever wanted a fine new tank with a flux capacitor? Well, now you got one. Get you a Panther. I'll take 3.
Brought to you by Rheinmetall. But nevertheless,
Seriously, I'll take 3 of those. I like if I was a person that was like procuring weapons for my military, I'd be like, let me place an order for a few of those. I'll take a pre-order.
now here's the catch. It will be 12 to 18 months before they ever get one. So, you know, they can place
Is
the
that
orders.
like the build time or is that like the transport time?
That is the build time, transport time, and everything included is 12 to 18 months.
Oh, damn.
So it will be an entire year before one of those ever show up in Ukraine if the Ukrainians start purchasing these now. But hey, it gives us something to look forward to if the war is going on next year, is that the Ukrainians could have pre-ordered themselves a KF-51 Panther. Hey! And we'll be seeing if they do. It's really cool. I mean, it's a beautiful looking tank. It really is, from what I understand, a heavily upgraded Leopard 2A6 or Leopard 2A7, but it still is quite good, and it looks beautiful. So going off of all of that, hopefully we'll get to see this thing in Ukraine, but nevertheless, I hope that does address that cool bit of news really well. And it's time for us to start moving down towards Turkey, because Germany wasn't the only country offering some of their best over the course of today. You see, the Turks have actually promised the Ukrainians that they were going to build them a Corvette, which is a little bit smaller than a frigate, but also bigger than a breadbox kind of a ship. The Ukrainians do not have any operational ships larger than a minesweeper at the moment, and as far as the combat role goes. So this ship, once introduced, will become the flagship of the Ukrainian Navy, and not only that, be the largest ship that the Ukrainian Navy has afloat. But right now, it's still in Turkey, and it's still under construction. But a picture came out today showing that it actually has been released from its dry dock, and is now sitting near the dock for outfitting. And we can see back there at the very stern of the ship that it already has this Ukrainian trident on it, showing that they're already pretty much done with the paint job for the most part.
That's actually pretty good, actually. I like that.
Man, it's looking pretty good, man. I'm not gonna lie.
fleet.
Looking pretty fly, man. I like it. You know what I mean? You know, I like it, man. And I gotta tell you, man, I need to not drink that much coffee again. But anyways, it is really cool to see this beautiful looking Corvette being built. It is a Turkish design, and hopefully we'll get to see this thing in the Ukrainian Navy after the war is over. Because the thing about this Corvette is that it probably would never be able to make it to Ukraine during the war, because the Russians probably will go out and attempt to destroy this thing before it ever made it into Ukrainian waters or into Ukrainian hands. So it pretty much guarantees that this thing will probably sit by in Turkey until the war is over, and then it'll be transferred over to the Ukrainians. Nevertheless, it is really cool to see, and hopefully we'll get to see this as a little present for Ukraine once the war ends. But moving on from that little bit of news and on into Ukraine itself, we also got to hear that the air defense last night was very successful in doing their job, able to down 2 X-59 guided missiles and 12 Shahed 136s overnight. A very good number. Once again, showing that the air defense be doing good. I'm not going to lie, they be doing really good. But
Man, what air defense doing, though? It's winning. It's always winning.
man, air defense is always winning, man. But you know something? Speaking of that air defense, I think this is a great time, Matthew, to circle back to something that has been on everyone's minds in the chat tonight. Is what happened to that A-50? What the A-50 dying for? But Who's it dying from, more so, is really the good question. And a lot of people have had a lot of different takes on this. In fact, it really is a very contentious topic even now. But Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so we asked y'all the question, would it serve Ukraine better if the Russian A-50 was either shot down by Russia's own people or shot down by the Ukraine forces? It's a pretty evenly split poll, actually. Some people really didn't care, but I didn't give you that option. I forced you to pick either one. And it looks like 53% said it would be better if it was shot down by Russia's own people to make them look incompetent, and 47% said it would be better if it was shot down by Ukraine forces. And on this front, I got to say that I think Ukraine might have sort of speculated to a good extent in coming to the conclusion that they shot it down, because the footage does appear to show that Russia got it. But I guess Ukraine is trying to go for the look that their military is highly, highly capable, and it does sort of like plays into that effect. But at the same time, it would be nice to make the Russians look even more incompetent, because honestly, they really can't go wrong either way. It makes the Russians look bad, like they can't fight the war. And then if Ukraine shot it down, it makes them look like they're just excellent at fighting the war. So, yeah, I'm actually with the people that said it doesn't really matter. I didn't give you that option, but I'm kind of with you. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say it does not. It actually does not matter. But the thing is that I want to make sure, the thing is that on this channel, the details do matter, at least as far as the news delivery goes. Beyond that, it doesn't really matter. The A-50 was shot down by someone, and another $500 million irreplaceable aircraft is lost, and the Russians will never get that thing back. That's really the most important part that matters. But as far as our news delivery and information goes, to me, it does seem like the Russians shot it down. But in either way, it's a win-win for the Ukrainians, like Matthew was saying. If the Russians shot it down themselves, they look like idiots. If the Ukrainians shot it down, they look like gods of war. So either way, they're going to be winning from this little ordeal right here. And also, another thing to point out about it is, the Russians would love for people to think that the Ukrainians did shoot it down at this point, because it honestly is a lot worse for the Russians. Like just a small majority of y'all were saying, it's probably a lot more worse for the Russians to say that they shot down their own plane, especially considering that it was a command plane. That would be like the U.S. shooting down one of our own AWACS planes. And let me go pull up an American AWACS, and let me go type that in right here. And let me go get one of ours, and let's see here. Now, we don't want that one, we don't want that one, we don't want that one, we don't want that one. Let's see here. I'm trying to find one of ours. Where the hell is it? So let me go up here. Let's see here. What in the world? It's really hard to actually find the American AWACS, the larger ones at least. But I'm going to have to find it, because I have to show y'all what we have in the U.S. Air Force. Well, let me just type in U.S. Air Force AWACS. I don't know the actual name of the aircraft. That's what I'm trying to... Here we go, the E-3 Sentry. So here's what one of the more modern aircraft look like at the moment that's in the U.S. Air Force that is our AWACS. It is based off of a Boeing 707, and that's what we would call an AWACS here in the U.S. Air Force. And these things are somewhat rare, and they're also fairly expensive, just like the Russian ones. But for us to shoot one of these things down, it would be mental. I mean, that would be absolutely insane. This thing is pretty much a battle coordinator when it's up in the air. If it got shot down, it's not coordinating well enough, apparently, because someone didn't know that that was the battle coordinator, or more so the manager flying around up in the air. Also,
these aircraft are supposed to be early warning aircraft, like to let you know something's coming. And I guess the Russian one didn't quite give the warning quick enough, because it kind of got hit before it saw anything, really.
Yeah, I would agree with you, man. It kind
It
of...
was a late warning aircraft, a little too late. Oh, Bliat, there's a missile coming our way, Bliat. But it's already hitting the fuselage, Bliat. Oh,
Dude.
dear. The fire burns my skin. Oh, man.
Dude, the cockpit...
It got dark.
Man, I'm not gonna lie. Ah, my skin! Ah! But anyways, getting back to what I was saying right here, the Russian warning system, Matthew, was not early. It went, and then the plane got hit, and then as they're going down, it went whoop 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 whoop. Incoming, Bled. Incoming. It's like too late, Bled. Everyone's dead, Bled. But anyways, still, wanted to show you all that. There's 68 of these. Of course, America, being America, we're just the best. There's 68 of these things in the sky right now. I believe some of these are not being used by the United States. I believe some of these are actually being used by foreign operators. And let me see if I can find out how many we have. We have about 31 of these things operational, and that's compared to all of the Russian command planes, which totaled about 7, and now it's down to around 4. So you can see that America is going to be able to coordinate a lot more battles or a lot more fights than the Russians would ever be able to coordinate at this point. They just don't have the ability to do it. But beyond that, just one.
Is it just me, or is it a little bit weird that all of our stuff, even like this one right here, is kind of old? It's like last produced in 1992 for the E3 Century. With our type of budget, you'd think that we would have new everything, like instead of really old aircraft like this. Maybe it's because it's analog or something like that, or it's maybe hardened systems and they don't want to have to go back and redo everything. But if we're building, like look at Germany, they're building new tanks, they're building new Leopards and stuff. It's like, but our Abrams X, when's that even coming out? It's like our stuff's kind of like a little bit behind the times at this point, isn't it?
No, not at all, because being about 30 years old in military terms, or even 40 years old, is actually fairly modern for in military time. I mean, usually, like you have to consider that the AK platform has been in use since 1947. The AR platform used by many countries at this point has been in use since even the early 1960s. In military.
Oh yeah. Like the basic platforms have been used for a long time, but we've had so many different reiterations of the AR over time. Like even now we're using a new SIG of some sort, an AR type weapon. But it's like this aircraft here looks old, and it is old. It's like 30 years old, and I know that's not technically old in military terms, but with almost $1 trillion a year budget, you'd think that we'd be upgrading this stuff a little bit more often.
Well, I mean, if you do that, you're going to have trillions of dollars put towards the military annually, because this stuff is really expensive. I mean, you have to consider the Russians are flying an AWACS plane. Let me go pull up the A-50 real quick to show you all this. The A-50 was produced from 1978 to 1992 as well. They only have about 4 of these in service after the last one was shot down yesterday, and they cost $500 million a piece. I mean, when you think about that, having 31 of these things in the U.S. Air Force is very expensive, because we're going off of considering that these things were kind of produced around the same time, although the American one is probably more expensive. You're looking at about $500 million per aircraft. And if we were to go and do the math on that, 500 million times 31, you get about $15.5 billion of AWACS planes that we have in the U.S. Air Force alone. So when you kind of think about that, it's like, you can't just really switch those things out like the new family car every 4 or 5 years. You got to get your money's worth out of these things.
Well, I've actually discovered something. Someone in the live chat, let's see who it was so I can give them credit. It was Complete Angler. Who said there is actually a new one. It's the E7 wedge tail. So I pulled it up, and it appears like we do have a new early warning system that was introduced in 2009, and it looks like a more modern version of basically that E3 we just looked at.
The E7 AWACS. So let me go pull that up real quick. Here we go, the wedge tail. So this is a modified. I don't really know if this is better. It's based off of a 737, so I'd actually believe that this thing has just a little bit less internal room inside the fuselage, because the 737 and the 707 actually use a very similar fuselage width, but the 707 is longer than the 737. So I'm not necessarily sold that this thing is probably better. It may just be smaller and more economical, because it also looks like we've already had only 14 of these things built. That's actually not a large number, and it looks like a lot of them aren't even used by the U.S. A lot of them have been sold to foreign allies. Let's see, we have 2 aircraft here in the United States on contract with a fleet of 26 planned, but out of all 14, the United States only has 2 of these things. And when you look at the list of current operators, we're not even on it because we're contracting them. They're not an actual part of the U.S. Air Force's inventory. So going off of that, I would have to say, I mean, you can't really replace these things quickly. I mean, when you also think about it, the M1 Abrams has been in service since 1975, which it's now nearly a 50-year-old tank design, and it's still considered very modern, especially compared to what the Russians have. It's considered wildly modern, because in military terms, it doesn't matter how old something really is by a measure of time. It matters how old it is compared to all of the competitors around the world. And usually the United States, on average, is around 20 to 25 years ahead of all of our rivals worldwide, except for our Western allies, who we usually give pretty up-to-date tech. But with that, I hope that does address that quite well indeed. But let's see. And also, Matthew has told me that we actually have another question that was asked of y'all, but I actually, unfortunately, didn't really get to see much about it. But what do we got, Matthew?
All right, so we had one more poll, but for some reason it got ended early, and I don't know why. I think the YouTube thing had a glitch there. The question was: Warren Buffett's son Howard has pledged $300 million to Ukraine's defense this year, and he pledged and gave $500 million last year just by himself. And what are your thoughts? It looks like 87% said excellent, and more people should do this that can afford it. And it looks like only a small percentage said it's good but not exceptional. And in my opinion, no matter how much money anyone has, if they have billions or if they have simply thousands, it doesn't matter to me. But it's still Warren Buffett's son money. It's his money. It's Howard's money. He got it however he got it. And that is very generous of him to go and pledge another $300 million. That's more than some countries have even given to Ukraine. And hopefully in the future, more billionaires will do things like that in the future because it's actually surprising that the billionaires themselves can pull almost as much weight as entire sovereign nations can pull when it comes to helping out Ukraine. So hopefully we see more of them doing that in the future. But huge props to Howard, by the way, for doing that. Because, like I said, even though he's got a lot of money, he's probably got billions. That's still a lot of money, and he could have done anything with it. He could have spent it on himself or done something for his own benefit, but instead he gave it to Ukraine, which is very admirable indeed. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say it is actually absolutely incredible. It's really impressive to hear that someone would just give $300 million to a nation for them to fight a war. That is an incredible thing, and I also see some people trying to downplay it, saying, it's just a gift. He gets a tax write-off for it. But the thing is that that's $300 million of his own money. He could have spent it any way he wanted to, much like y'all send in super chats. And y'all get to choose whether y'all super chat or not, or whether y'all donate to fundraisers or not. That is the same thing, but on a much higher level. And I'd have to say that it is really impressive to know that someone would give $300 million to the Ukrainian government to spend on the military, and hopefully we'll see that money well spent. But that's actually really incredible, and hopefully we'll get to see that good things come out of that. Hopefully so, going on into the future. But I also see,
the good thing is about what he's done is he just literally gave the money last year to Ukraine to help with their defense, and he's not showing up like some sharks are. Like there's some sharks showing up to find really good like sort of advantage investment opportunities, and they're showing up shaking hands with Zelensky, kind of like with an ulterior motive in mind. But this was actually a genuine like, here, I'm going to actually help you out and not expect anything in return from it. So that's very unusual to me.
Yeah, I would say it is really unusual because like you said, like a lot of folks who have loads of money, like the BlackRock investing group, kind of go over there and it's like, what is their real motive? It's not really to help out Ukraine. It's really more so to get some kind of a profit incentive out of this whole ordeal. But with Warren Buffett, he just literally just gave money. So gotta say, pretty whack, and I gotta say also pretty respectable as well. But with that, I hope that does address that well. And also, Jay Lancaster said it's probably not a tax write-off. Probably not, because I believe you can only get tax write-off for certain things, and I don't believe supporting a foreign government is one of those things that is able to be written off in the tax records. But anyways, with that, also another thing to mention is that you don't get tax write-offs for taking money out of your bank account that you've had in there for, say, years and then giving it to someone. That doesn't give you a tax write-off. That's more.
You probably had to liquidate some stock or something to like actually free up that money, because most of these billionaires don't have that money laying around in just cash. They typically have it in some type of investment or some kind of asset or something like that. And he probably had to sell something to actually get the money to give to Ukraine last year. But like some people are noting, $300 million this year is a pledge, but he actually did follow through with his pledge last year for $500 million. So there's no reason in my mind that he wouldn't do it again this year.
Yeah, I would have to say I don't think he's going to back out. I mean, we have no reason to doubt him. He did it last year. He'll probably do it again. But with that, I hope that does address that quite well. While someone says, call your clown rep, vote Ukraine aid, or your Cirrus Live is over. Oh, that's interesting. Hot take. But anyways, with that, we are now moving on from those questions that we asked y'all. We're now moving on down into our location unknowns, where we got to see a German MG5 in Ukraine. We've actually shown y'all this before, but it wasn't really like dropped like, oh, look at this. It was just more so in a picture. But these are one of the newer German light machine guns that are actually being introduced into Bundeswehr service just a few years ago. And it is really cool to see that they are, of course, in Ukraine. We don't know how many the Ukrainians have, but we're starting to see them a little bit more. And hopefully they're a very good system. It looks to me like I couldn't really find this information out, but it does look to me like this thing is some kind of a modified M249 or an M240. One or the other, but still really cool and hopefully doing its part in the war. But moving on from that and into our next bit of location unknown news, we also got to see that the Belarusian volunteers had a really proud moment on the 2-year anniversary because, of course, their group, the Belarusian volunteers, was one of the first in the Foreign Legion, and it was also one of the largest then. And even now, 2 years later, it is still the largest. It actually grew into a group of thousands. It's almost a brigade strength unit, and they are still in Ukraine and still fighting. They were very proud of that and made this video today in commemoration of 2 years of war.
Антибеларускі режим – гэта галоўны кацёр полка Кальновская. І пакуль у Беларусі працягваюцца рэпрэсіі, дарога да кальноўцаў не зарасце бур'янам. І зараз тыя, каго яшчэ ўчора катаваў АМАП, самі трымаюць у руках зброю. І мы гатовыя сустрэцца са сваімі былымі катамі. А ці гатовы да такой сустрэчы вы, каты нашага народу? І ніякія вагнераўцы не навучаць вас таму, чаму мы навучыліся за 2 гады інтэнсіўных баёў тут. І за кожнага забітага і закатаванага вамі яму на смену прыйдуць ягоныя сябры, ягоныя блізкія, ягоныя родныя. І мы абавязкова вернем сабе нашу радзіму, нашу Беларусь. Жыве Беларусь! Жыве вечна! Слава Україні! Героям слава!
And what an outro,
Героям
too.
слава!
Man, they got the sickest outros. Look at that. They got the ALP. They got the AK. They got the Brins. They got that damn RPG. I mean, they got everything here. I like it. But anyways, that's the end of their small video, of course, commemorating 2 years of the war and going from just a small group of anti-Russian, anti-Axis of Evil Belarusians and into an entire brigade level fighting force. But moving on from that and into our next bit of news, we also got to see a little bit of the combat medics in training as well. We rarely ever get to see how the combat medics train, but today we got to see a small clip of that. Check it out.
Принимайте! Тримай! Ще приподними! Ще! Давай! Стоп! Бегай! Быстрее, время вышло!
Oh,
Good luck, don't die.
Good luck, don't die.
Damn.
Pretty simple message. I think they get the picture. But beyond that, pretty cool to see them in training. Good luck, don't die. But moving on from that and into one of our last bits of location unknown news before we move on into the front lines, we got to see the Russian casualty report for today. Ooh!
Oh, I'm telling you what. Look at that person over there in the comments talking about crickets. Man, these aren't crickets. These are big losses, man. The crickets aren't out on this one.
Man,
they're loud.
You were going to live in the pod and you're going to eat the bugs. But anyways, one Bobcat skits here was lost today. Hey! Better than none.
All right, let's go.
Applause.
One plane, too.
Applause is mandatory. Applause. But still, beyond that,
clap.
Please clap. Please clap. Please don't. Please don't. Dude, I gotta go find you that clip after the stream and show it to you. I can't show it on stream because it showed someone getting absolutely decked in a parking lot outside of Walmart. But this drunk
YouTube
guy
hates that. They hate it when people get decked in the face.
Yeah, but this drunk guy was walking up to this guy filming, like in a parking lot somewhere at Walmart, and he was like, "I'm gonna kick your butt," and then the guy behind the camera said, "Please don't, please don't, please don't," and then the guy got so close that the cameraman took a swung at him, pretty much knocked him out in one punch, and the guy fell backwards onto the ground, and he just sat there, and then the cameraman was still going, "Please don't, please don't." I was like, what the hell's wrong with these people? Like in this video. Anyways, I'll have to show that to you.
You remember back, speaking of people getting decked in the face, you remember back when we showed the video of, it was the Russian and the Ukrainian, I think the Russian or someone came up and snatched the flag from the Ukrainian diplomat at some kind of event. You remember that?
Oh yeah, and they threw hands.
Yeah, they threw hands. YouTube came down so hard on us for that. Like, they sent us all kinds of notices talking about don't show violent content. They took the video down and removed it from YouTube. Like, they hate when you upload stuff like that. Like, it's crazy. Like, you can show war all day long, but you can't show someone throwing a punch. Like, it's wild.
Man, you could show war, but God forbid you throw in the curse word within the first 8 minutes. Goodness gracious,
Yeah.
that's it.
But
That's
if
it.
you're making money off throwing your punches, though, like like fighting, like boxing, UFC, you're free. Feel free to upload that all day long if you want, but don't dare show a punch outside of making money. Hell no, don't do that.
Hell no, absolutely not. We like Mike Tyson, but we don't like the diplomat standing up for his country. Absolutely irreprehensible. But still, 770 Russian soldiers got wiped out today. Pretty good number. Along with 15 armored personnel carriers, 28 supply trucks, 8 main battle tanks, 36 artillery pieces, 31 drones, 1 plane, which was the A-50, 2 cruise missiles, 2 anti-aircraft warfare systems, and the 1 special equipment vehicle. Overall, it was a really good day for the Ukrainians, and I gotta say, it is crazy to think that 2 years on, they are still fighting. Really, almost, it's 2 years on, they are still fighting. Absolutely incredible stuff. But moving on from that news and on into our frontline news, because we actually have a decent amount of that today, really spanning all the way from the northeast all the way down to the south. We didn't get any news near Krenki again, but we did get news going all the way down to Robotane today, and starting at Svatove, which is all the way up in the northeastern area. But before we get to that, I want to make sure that we can address some super chats that have been thrown in tonight. And so with that, what do we got, Matthew?
All right, so our first super chat of the night goes to the return of a channel legend. Jesus UCSP is back yet again, and he throws in a very generous $50 donation. And thank you very much, Jesus, for that support. It's good to see you once again. He says, "Hola, and let me tell you something. For the record, I never left the LSA, and because of my LSA tanking, I lost a job I had. Goodness, I hate to hear that." He says, "But happy to report, as of 3 months ago, I landed a federal job. So please let me know." He says, "So please know, I've never left the LSA, and a type of 1, if you missed me." And Jesus, I have to tell you what, I'm sorry to hear about the lost job. Like, I do know why that occurred. I know the harassment that ensued because of some things that were said. And truly, like, that irritates me to no end to hear that happened. And I am very sorry to hear that. But I'm glad to know it seems like you've scored an even bigger fish. So I'm glad to hear that. And good luck with the feds. So Jesus is now a Fed. How about that? I'm very proud of you, Jesus. And congrats on that. And Enforcer, what say you?
Huge shout out to our LSA tanker. And not only that, our brand new Fed. Yay! Give it up for the Feds. We love the Feds. But beyond that, I gotta say, I hate to hear that did happen to you, Jesus UCSB. That situation was really rough because there was only like it was a tough one. Like, that's really the best way for me to explain it without getting too much into the behind the scenes details. But beyond that, I hate to hear that happened. And once again, it shows how sick and demented that group of people is, considering that they call themselves pro-Ukrainian, and then they'll try and eviscerate other pro-Ukrainians just because they're mentally deranged like that. And, I just got to say that, I think this is the best thing that we can get right now from what happened back then, because not only were you hit, Jesus UCSB, loads of people were hit in the Lee Spring Army by the lunatics, and also the channel was as well. Everyone was getting attacked at the same time. That was many, many months ago. And what's crazy about that is that it really pointed out to me that while while everyone's pro-Ukrainian and technically they're on the same side, that doesn't mean that everyone is the Lee Spring Army's friend. Certainly not. And I would have to say, I hate to hear that that did happen. I'm glad to hear, though, that you were able to get a job with a federal agency, because now that means that if for some reason they did want to go after you again, it's going to be very difficult, if not impossible, to really do anything to you. So that's going to be really fortunate, in a sense. And also, that is why we didn't really want people engaging them, because in case of y'all don't know, we are still getting death threats and threats of violence directed at us almost on a daily basis still, particularly by that group of people, and also the ringleader now, who likes to almost directly make the threats of violence himself. And we've also, not to get into exact details, but we've also had some very weird things happen behind the scenes, to where now we pretty much have to walk around everywhere armed, because we don't know if there's a stalker or a lunatic just sitting around right outside of our house waiting for us to walk out, so that way they can try and get us.
Oh yeah, I did that anyway. I always carry wherever I go. Like I did that before, like the YouTube thing. So it's nothing new for me. But yeah, it's always a good thing to do. And also, it's Alabama, by the way. You got to concealed carry here. It's like a custom.
Oh, I open carry. Like I open carry. The holster's on me. You can see it. But beyond that, it's been a big thing. I'm glad to know that you were able to weather it through, Jesus UCSB. I'm glad that the channel was able to weather it through, because it looks like, Jesus, not only did the channel enter the golden age, but you have entered the golden age too, and welcome with everyone else to the golden age of the Lee Spring Army. And so I hope that you have a great time with that job. I hope it is a great one. And also, you never left the LSA, Jesus. You did check in here and there throughout, and so we knew that you were around. It's just that we didn't know that you were around a lot. Because for us, we only know that people exist as long as they are physically in the live chat. If they disappear from the live chat, in my mind, they have stopped watching, and they're not here. Like, for example, Angry Penguin, who I believe is still gone, because I haven't seen him in the live chat tonight. So we don't know where Angry Penguin is. He could actually be watching right now and just not saying anything in the chat. But to us, it looks like he's left because we just don't see him. But beyond that, thank you so much once again for support, Jesus UCSB. Thank you for helping this channel to keep on running. Thank you for having our back for forever with this channel. And thank you once again for helping us to keep this thing running. But with that, I hope that does address that well. And we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Hal Rose, who throws in a $33 donation. And thank you, Hal, very much as well for that very generous support. And he says, Enforcer Matt, if you turn that Twitter split into a poll, include other, because I vote for the ghost of Dmitry Utkin, and didn't Dmitry bag A50 number 1 on his ride to Moscow last year? And did he?
Let's see. Dmitry.
That was the Wagner co-founder, by the way. Let's see, didn't he bag A50? Was it him?
No, wait, I know what he's talking about. Okay, so, funnily enough, Halaros, great question, because that brings us full circle. Near the city of Lipetsk, because the Wagner group was driving up the highway, the M4 highway to Moscow, pretty much nonstop. On the way, they sent a small force of Wagner guys with some AA to Lipetsk to secure the city and take it under their control. And when they did, they ended up targeting an Ilyushin 22M, and let me go pull up a picture of one of those. And they shot it down, but that is like the smaller version of Russia's command airplanes, and this was the plane that they shot down right here.
Ah, so they got one, but not quite as expensive as the other one, but they got one.
Yeah, they did. And also, to bring us way back in the day, here's an actual YouTube video that came out back then showing the wreckage of that IL-22M that was shot down near the area of Lipetsk. So, yes, they did shoot down a command plane. It wasn't an A-50, though. The IL-22Ms are a lot more numerous than the A-50, but they did end up bagging themselves a command plane on the way up there. But nevertheless, I hope that does address that pretty well. And also, let's see, if you turn that Twitter split into a poll. Yeah, I mean, you know, he did a pretty good amount of damage. And also, another thing that made me start to think is that Russian air defense has a history of friendly fire incidents, because y'all may remember the literal pogrom that happened over the airspace of Bryansk a while ago, where 4 Russian aircraft, I believe it was 2 helicopters and 2 planes, were all shot down within hours of each other, and it turned out that all of them were shot down by Russian air defense. Not a single one was shot down by Ukraine, and the Russians even confirmed that. So going off that, it's not out of the question that Russian air defense could completely drop the ball and end up shooting down their own aircraft. But Dmitry Ukin shot one down deliberately because he thought it was, I forgot what the Wagner explained it as. They explained it away as they thought it was some kind of a bomber that was flying up there, so they shot it down and they didn't realize it was a command plane. I think that's the story they tried to spin later, but they knew it was a command plane and they ended up shooting it down because they thought the command plane was coordinating efforts against them, not against Ukraine. But with that, I hope that does address that the best I can from the information I know, but it was not an A50, unfortunately. But with that, thank you so much once again for the support, Hal Rose, and being one of the amazing channel viewers who is still here with us over 2 years later. Really, almost, it is actually 3 years later now at this, well, not really. Let's see, what would it be, Matthew? It's like, it's the 2nd year or the 3rd year now.
We're going on the 3rd year. So I actually like titled the video that y'all might have noticed disappeared because I wasn't that happy with the video today, so I kind of just unlisted it because I got very high standards for our daily short war videos. But it's actually going on the 3rd year. Some people told me that. So 2nd year's over. This is math, so it's not our forte, but it's the 3rd year.
That's it. 1, 2, 2,
Yeah,
3.
down to 3. That's a big leap there for math, and a small leap for us. A big one, actually. I've messed it all up. Whatever.
Oh man. Oh man, my brain is hurting. Help me. But
I may not be good at math right now, but at least I don't sell hot dogs, you know?
ooh. But also, Andrew Tubiolo in the live chat said the problem with the friendly fire theory is that the A-50 would be commanding the anti-air missiles. Yeah, but you have to remember that the Russians have done stupid things in the past, and they have been in command, and stupid things have happened. The Russians are known to be wildly incompetent, so it's not out of the question that they could have had such gross incompetency that something like that actually did happen. And that's why I don't rule it out. That's why I actually say it's more likely that that was the case than the Ukrainians actually shooting it down that far away from Ukraine. But with that, I hope that does address that quite well. And thank you once again for the support, Hal Rose, and I hope that did address that quite well. And we are on to the last question of this segment, and then we're moving right back into the news, dilly.
All right, and the last one of the segment is the first ever super chat on our live stream from Richard Hawkins, who throws in a very generous $100 donation. And thank you very much, Richard, for that support. And I'm not sure, let's see here. He says, go LSA. And also he said, Slav Ukraine, and love the thought of a non-political news channel. And we haven't seen that in 30 years. And go LSA. And also, Richard, I'm not sure if you're new or you've been around for a while or not, but huge thanks. I like the idea myself. And really, the Enforcer was insistent on keeping politics separate from this channel. And that has turned out to be like our defining like characteristic. And it's really a good thing. Because after I've seen some Ukraine channels go highly political, I start to really see and realize how badly that splits up support for no reason. You don't have to bring politics into this. And it's better if you don't, because you're going to split half of the United States up into camps on an issue which is basically bipartisan, which is Ukraine. That's our foreign security. So I agree with you 100%. But Enforcer, what say you?
And also, I got to thank you for the massive, unbelievable support, Richard Hawkins. Your first time supporting the channel, and it was a massive amount of support as well. Thank you for that. And also, Slav Ukraini. And I absolutely love the idea of a non-political news channel. I got to say, like, I absolutely respect that people love to be involved in the political system here in the United States and believe themselves to be concerned citizens that are very emotional and also very strongly opinionated about where they think the future of the nation may need to go, according to them. However, there's a line that I draw where that goes from being a concerned citizen looking for the best interest of the nation, whatever their opinion may be, and whatever side they may pick, And then it moves on from that into being a malicious rabble-rouser, trying to sow seeds of discord amongst the country by just being violent about it and trying to stir up folks to just hate the other group. And that's all that news has turned into these days. When I say the word Fox News, y'all all think of one political leaning, and when I say the word CNN, you think of the exact other. And there is no such thing. Those are really the only two major news channels that really exist anymore. The other ones, ABC, MSNBC, CBS, all of them, they have so little ratings and such low viewership, they may as well have ceased to exist and be on the level of a YouTube channel like ours at this point. But those two channels do nothing but sit there and feed the exact information and the exact kind of mindset that those two groups want to hear, and they do not give news. And of course, the topics that both of them talk about are things that do affect the nation, and a lot of people are concerned about. But why in the world is it that they have to tell their viewers exactly what they want to hear and the exact kind of take they want on the situation, instead of just going, this is a major issue that Americans hear, let's show y'all both sides. Here's some people that are saying this certain subject is a good thing. Here's some people who are saying this certain subject is a bad thing. And we can see that it's a gray area. Not everyone's on the same page, and there's the arguments that everyone says for and against a certain topic. Why can't news go back to that? It used to be just like that, and it was so much more interesting, because you actually got to hear both sides presented side by side. And even nowadays, they do that a little bit, trying to present both sides, but they will cherry pick the worst person to represent the side they don't like, and then they'll cherry pick the best person to try and represent the side that they like. I absolutely hate that. I absolutely just despise mainstream news for that reason, Richard. And I think that it would be great to go back to the times when news was news, and I just told y'all what was going on, what people were thinking and saying about something, and then y'all filled in the dots, and that was that. Because like, I just can't get it across. Politics does not belong everywhere. Of course, I plan on getting in politics and trying to get into politics. That's, of course, where politics lives. It lives within the government. So to get in a political position, you have to get involved in politics. But running a news channel like this, it's a completely separate field, and you don't have to shove your political views and beliefs down people's throats just because they're yours. That's something that too many people think is something that they have to do these days. A lot of YouTubers think that. In fact, all YouTubers pretty much, rather than this channel at this point, that cover the Ukraine war, believe that they have to shove their specific political opinions down their viewers' throats. And I think that that's an absolute disservice to Ukraine, and it's also gross that these people are so narcissistic that they think that people would want to hear their political opinions and use hundreds of thousands of dead people as a soapbox to try and propel their political opinions forward. That is absolutely disgusting to me. Because I want y'all to think this. When you sit there and you see a building that has been destroyed by the Russians, and you see the pictures come out, and you watch the video come out of them pulling out dead bodies from those buildings, and then some YouTuber is treating it like a reacts video, and then trying to use it as a political soapbox, you just remember how gross that is. That guy might as well be standing on the dead bodies of those people that just got killed, and trying to act like his opinion is so much important, and those bodies are only seasoning to the opinion that he's trying to get out to y'all. That is sickening, and that's something that I'll never stoop down to the level of doing here on this channel, whether it be about Ukraine or whether it be about any other topic.
Indeed. But also, BC Skyman said in the live chat, he said 30 years ago, America was much more united. And I gotta tell you, that is true. Like, America's had problems since the beginning. Every nation's gonna have problems. And 30 years ago, there were certainly problems then as well. But one thing was for certain. I don't think Americans were at each other's throat quite like they are today. And it's really mainstream media and politicians in general that have caused like such division for their own gain that to me is just so irritating, because so many issues like Ukraine, as well as other issues that should be pretty much neutral, we should all sort of like work toward achieving a goal, become split, it becomes complicated, and all of a sudden this simple issue has turned into a highly complex and deep issue that everyone is very violent about, and they want to basically kill each other over it. And it's really like the mainstream media has done a good job of like causing a lot of that anger. And really, honestly, the mainstream media needs to go away because they're doing more damage than good at this point.
And I would agree. I would completely agree with that. I would have to say, that not only that the news has created, the mainstream news companies have created this damage, Fox News and CNN, but now it's become a disease in the public. Like, I gotta say this, I don't get why in the world is there politics in everything now. Like, you can't watch a TV show, you can't watch sports, you can't do anything that used to just be entertaining and escapism, because it was supposed to be an escape from reality and something that's entertaining and just, you know, distracts you from everything going on. Now it doesn't distract you from everything going on. It literally shoves it in your face. That's not where politics belongs. Like, people need to start learning again that there is a boundary in between where politics should exist and where political opinions should thrive and where they should not. And news, well, the reporting of news like we're doing here on this channel, is a place where a political opinion is not supposed to thrive. A political opinion is not supposed to thrive in the news. I'm supposed to give you all the information on both sides that y'all want to hear. Well, not y'all want to hear, that y'all need to hear, and then y'all can say whatever y'all want based off of that. But with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. But I got to thank you so much greatly once again, Richard Hawkins, for believing in that kind of a news network. Hopefully we'll be able to bring that into reality as we keep on going into the future. And I've got to say thank you so much for the support, because every bit of support that we get on this channel helps us to continue to focus our eyes forwards into the future and make this a reality, and hopefully benefit the Western world and the United States by doing so. But still, long live the Lee Spring Army, and thank you once again. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on into the news again, up into the northeastern area near Svatove, where we got to see the 103rd Brigade taking out Russian soldiers. And we're going to be muting that, but we can see the drone flying in. And we can see the drone flying around. And look, there's a Russian. Oh, Blitz! Mama! Ooh! But anyways, he's
Always look at both ways before you cross the road, Bliat. Always be careful. Watch your drones.
And that's what they call a traffic ticket. Click, click.
That's a traffic accident. Oh, Bliat.
And with that, that's the end of the clip right there. But still, pretty interesting to see that the 103rd was getting some Russians. Moving on from that, we got to see a Ukrainian Mi-8 conducting a indirect fire mission. Here's the clip. Now let me go back so you can see this a little bit better. And also, I love the old Soviet fans that they have in the cockpit. Look, an old Soviet cockpit. And then, you know, he goes and roasts everyone wherever the hell he... Anyways, here's the clip. Ooh, nice. Oh, they had a little hang fire there. I gotta say,
well, that's a hell of a view. I gotta say, that's I'd love to be a helicopter like pilot. Well, not necessarily a pilot, but just like riding along with these guys one time. Is that like super sick? Like the way there's like swinging a helicopter around.
Nah, man, forget that. I don't want to be a passenger. I want to be the pilot. Actually, I honestly think, Matthew, hot take, I think it'd be more fun to be a helicopter pilot than it would be to be an airline pilot. It seems like more involved, more fun flying.
Maybe so, but you mean an airline? You mean a fighter jet pilot?
No, I mean like to be just any kind of a helicopter pilot versus being just a normal fixed-wing aircraft pilot.
Oh, I'd rather fly a fighter jet personally, but between a helicopter and that, definitely fighter jet.
Man, get the hell. What the hell do you mean? I'm just kidding. But I probably would be fun either way. But for some reason, I just really like helicopters. I really started to get a liking for them in my head. I'm like, they look cool. They look really fun to fly. Like, even if it's a utility helicopter or an actual combat or an attack helicopter, they all look really cool. I would love to fly one. Maybe one day I will. But with that, we are on to the next clip down in the Severonsky Forest, where we got to see the Omega unit wandering around the outskirts of the woods. We hear a little bit of that shooting going on.
Плюс.
Oh, we hear the artillery coming in.
Хуета.
На 12, там окоп, там підари сидять.
Ебать его рот. Иду! Тримаю! Давай, меня.
Добывай там.
We see them clearing some trenches here. Sick AR. What is this? Oh my god!
Short
What?
one.
Hold on, I don't mean to interrupt you there. That is an old Soviet scope right there. It's like a 1PNU2 or something like that. I don't know, something along those lines, but that is not even like a modern optic for that thing. That's like a Soviet era optic that they jimmy rigged on top of that AR. That is actually pretty cool.
Is that a Daniel?
Maybe.
О!
Dude, this guy literally looked in there and he went, oh, just look.
О! Ніхуя. Ніхуя не видно. Ямки, ямки шукайте. Ямки шукайте, не сидіть на відкритті. Ніхуя собі.
Oh.
Цілий? Плюс.
See artillery raining down on their heads.
У нас все нормал, єнот. У тебе? Блядь. Андрюха, на допомогу. На допомогу.
We see the artillery coming down, and really quickly I'd like to address something that I've seen from the chat that I feel like we've kind of had as our running rule for a while, and a lot of people have known this, but I want to make sure to cover it again, because an old guard of the channel has said something a little interesting. Vinnie Mac said that this channel doesn't show Ukrainian losses, and we should, but over the course of 2 years, I've made it very clear why we do not show Ukrainian losses. We report the news on the battlefield in an unbiased way, and we'll say where the Ukrainians are losing and where they are winning. But we do not show Ukrainian losses on this channel because there are Ukrainian soldiers that are watching this channel right now. We do not want to show them demoralizing footage of their own soldiers, probably even their own relatives, or maybe even friends that they know, getting blown away by a Russian drone or something along those lines. That could be demoralizing, and while we are an unbiased channel as far as our frontline analysis goes, we are a pro-Ukrainian channel in stance, and we do not want to put out any footage that is going to be demoralizing to the Ukrainian soldiery. That's why we do not do that, and I don't think we ever will. We see them pulling out some Russians here and taking him prisoner.
Давай, Пашка. Давай, давай, давай. Держись. Давай, Пашка. Давай, давай, терпи, терпи. Где носилки?
Возьмите нахуй РПшку, блядь.
Все нормально. Пашка, терпи, терпи. Блядь, помоги эвакуировать мужика, блядь. Нормально? Ты в сведомости?
And we see them still processing some of the Russian prisoners.
Идем, блядь. Ена, терпи, терпи, терпи. Андрюх, давай туда, да. Мужики, один смотрит 6, один 6 смотрит.
Давайте, давайте.
Мужики, 1-6 контролит.
І голову підтримуй. Зараз буде опускати вниз.
Пашка, Пашка. Терпи, 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 Пашка, терпи.
Терпи, братішка.
Терпи, братишка. Давай. Обережно, обережно. Андрюха. Ебать, ще й ствол забив, походу. Ёбан. Нормально.
You see this Ukrainian soldier without a breath.
Та це я, ствол чисто. Я чую. Мужички, не суетимся, все під контролем. Думайте за Пашу. Чекайте, я не стягнули там.
Да. Ні, стянули, хуйово. Візьми,
Зараз, я просто не бачив.
вона під ним, вот
Це?
вона. Готові? Раз,
два, три. Давай, так, портал.
And that's the end of the clip right there, but showing a little bit of the action of the Omega unit near the edge of the Severonsky Forest. Beyond that, the Russians have not been able to advance in this area today, and the Ukrainians are able to declare a successful defensive operation. Moving on from that and down into the area of Berestove, we're able to see some view of the trenches shown by the K2 group of the 54th Mechanized. Now that is copyright. It's just no question.
He really is walking like Darkness's old friend, though.
Man, he's... Aw, man. I'm getting no views. My channel can't grow. I'm going to Twitter where I'll make $10 a month. Aw, man.
Jeez, you can tell that guy doesn't want to be there.
Aw, man, I'm huddled up. I'm not crying. I'm freaking done, man. But anyways, that's the end of the clip. And it looks like the Russians are done in this area. But with that, we are now moving on from that clip and a little bit further down the lines and into the area of Orlivka, where we got to see a BMP-3 getting destroyed. All right, we're going to mute that. But
here we can see the Ukrainian FPV drone finding its next meal. A very young BMP-3. The BMP-3 is young and ill-experienced and does not understand that it is not supposed to remain within the open fields. The Ukrainian FPV drone is preparing to pounce and consume its next meal. The FPV drone lunges at the BMP, eviscerating it and creating a delicious snack.
How the Ukrainians saw that thing through all that static and hit it, like that's a pretty skilled flying right there.
Hey man, you give me some static. But still, yeah, you're right. I mean, it was really wild that they were even able to see it, but huge kudos to them because they got another pretty rare armored personnel carrier for the Russians. But moving on from that little bit of news and a little bit further down the lines, we also got to see a little interesting thing going on. It was a ground-launched small-diameter bomb compilation. There's one. Here comes two, right there. Here comes 3, 4. Have you ever wanted to see a 5th ground-launched small-diameter bomb slam into the Russian forces? Well, you're about to find out, mister. Here we can see that aeronafty, and we're about to see it get nasty up in here. Oh man!
Ooh, you see that thing go flying off over there? What was that?
Goodness, that was just that was just a little bit of cloth and some nice hamburger meat. Here we can see the Russians about to get their asses blasted inside of Avdiivka by a ground-launched small-diameter bomb. Watch as the first one comes in and knocks out that MTLB so quick that you'd think it was some kind of a domestic abuse case. Check that out. There's the first hit, and it's out like a light. Check it out as the column continues to move away from the area, now freaking out and screaming like little ladies. The next group tries to hide inside of this warehouse, which hardly has a roof, and they're about to learn their lesson real quick. Here we can see the Russians continuing to get hammered. Hammered like a night out on the bar. But nevertheless, it's not the bar exam. Well, sorry, let me rephrase that joke. It's not the bar they're going to, it's the bar exam they're going to, and they're getting their asses beat tonight. That's just because...
Man, you know, I just thought about it. You know, the lawyers have the bar exam. That's one version of it. And then the alcoholics also have a bar exam as well. They show up to the bar and they have to like try out and drink all the different liquors and stuff. Like that's the other version of the bar exam.
Man, I'm not drunk, man. Man, I can control my liquor.
Why in the world do I sound like Mike Tyson doing that?
Man, I'm not drunk, man. You're just a rat piece of... You're just a rat piece of...
Try some of this vodka. Kiss.
Man, this vodka make me feel romantical. I gotta go kiss some. But anyway,
Got some Fiji water for my vodka. Come on, man. Turn off your station. You talking out of turn?
Oh man! But with that, that's the end of that clip right there. And nice to see that the ground-launched small-diameter bombs were able to do some work. Meanwhile, in the Krasnoyarsk area, we got to see more Russian tanks getting blasted. Blast them!
Blast them, Ronnie. Let them have it.
Who's Ronnie?
You know, that's just the go-to name of the us. Like, go get him, Ronnie.
I thought you were talking about someone specific. I was like, who the hell is Ronnie? I never
Look,
heard.
man, go get them. You know.
I never heard of no Ronnie. What the hell? And when you see them continuing to get blasted and hit, blasted and clapped, you know.
Man, the Ukrainians are making them clap.
Yay!
What's that? Oh,
That's clapping. What's that? It's clapping.
I was like, was that coming from the video? What?
Maybe that didn't really sound like clapping. Like trying another way. There. How about that? Does that sound like
That's
clapping?
better.
Okay, good. Because yeah, the other one I was starting to think, oh, that does sound a little suspicious.
Really?
If we make that sound much more, we'll be on CNN and getting fired, rehired, and then fired again. But anyways, that's the end of that clip, and we got to see the 47th getting them knocked out. But hey, you know what's funnier? As the Abrams was finally on duty today again. Check this clip out. Actually, this picture. But there it is. That's an Abrams. An M1A1 Abrams in action at Avdiivka. None of these have been lost yet. I'm sure it's just a time coming until one of them does end up getting disabled or destroyed, but for now, none of them have been, and it's really cool to see them out there in action. But moving on from that and into our next clip, we also got to see a Bradley engaging the Russians. Is that a TOW 2? My
Toad and
God!
Frog together again.
It's Toad and Frog. I like it.
Oh, they got that bass line hitting hard these days.
Thunk, thunk, thunk.
Slava Ukraine.
Someone's gonna make a beat out of this.
It really is. Now, that would be something cool for anybody that's musically inclined out there. Take all these war sounds and make a song using just the war sounds, and you can have someone do the vocals over it.
Man, that's a good idea. I like that.
We could put that in the intro if they would be kind enough to let us use it copyright free.
Well, I mean, we're asking too much. But anyways, let me show you all the conditions of the battle. Because, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. I mean, some Ukrainians are having it a little bit tough. This guy has this wash bowl right here, and this is the only way that they can even bathe themselves in a small way before they return back to frontline fighting. We're going to be muting the creepy music in the background, but this is a day in the life of some of the Ukrainian soldiers near the Avdiivka area.
That's like that pot that, when you're on cartoons and you're like sick and you have a cold or something, they put their feet in the warm water and the thing and they're sitting there shivering with a blanket around them.
Oh, that's so cold.
Oh, it's so cold, man. Can I have a little bit of that Vicks? I'm cold.
Matthew, this looks like a perfect spot right here to hop out of your ambulance, sit down, whip out a cigarette, and start going, I've uncovered the meaning of life. Something like that.
Or have Conor McGregor pop out if he's going to be Irish like that.
Yeah.
You'll do effing nothing.
See him just kind of looking around. Oh, that guy's still happy. What the hell is... Oh, wait a minute, that was the sole of a shoe. I did not know what that was. I was like, what the hell is that,
I looked up, too, at the same point. I was like, what the hell is he holding and waving around like that?
I was
going to say anything.
Dude, I was going to be like, whoa, Nelly, whoa! It's like we can't have...
Oh, my God, it's unintentional. Yuck. Get out the screen.
Oh, my God. What is this ad? Not knowing that ads are directed at you based off of your search history. But anyways, moving off of this.
I know we're about to have one of those moments when I looked up. Like, my heart got racing a little bit after I saw it. That was the sole of a shoe?
Yeah, that was the sole of a shoe, thank God.
Okay.
Thank God it was. Because otherwise, I was about to start panicking. Romania. But moving on from that and into the next clip we got, this is the 3rd Brigade operating one of their tanks near Avdiivka. This was on Valentine's Day, but we didn't see the clip until today. All right. But here's their tank on the move, doing their thing. Oof. Bada boom, chugga chugga. We see them still operating their tank, you know, doing their little thing. Get them. Ooh, get them. We see their tank continuing to slew their turret around, looking for any targets off in the distance.
They're sort of letting them have it.
Man, they're letting them have everything, including the kitchen sink. You know what I mean? They're really giving it to them. And JT said, that barrel does not look stable, to be honest. Let's check it. Let me look at that. I wasn't really focusing on that too much. Oh, they call an electrical line. I think it's the camera that's not really making it look stable. It looks pretty stable to me. It does rock around, though, after it fires, but, you know, stabilization after it fires doesn't matter. It only matters that it's stable when it's firing. And they are giving this street everything they can. Oh, a little explosion behind the tank right there. We don't know what that was. Norman also said, looks like they taken some hits and they given them. They a brawler. That's straight up brawler. Oh, they hit a limb. That ought to not knock the gun out of alignment. Now they're hitting some more. And we see the gunner starting to rotate the turret so that way they're not doing that. Because it's not necessarily great for the barrel. Or great for the gun, that matter. We see them continue to roll backwards out of the area. You see them firing. Firing, doing their thing. Uh-huh. And just look at them. They got that freaking 1 gear, 3 mile an hour reverse going strong on the Soviet era main battle tank.
We definitely know this isn't a French tank because it's only going 3 miles an hour in reverse, not 20.
Man, that French tank could be going just getting out of there, man. You gotta love that though about Western tanks is that all of them have almost as many reverse gears as they have forward gears. But moving on from that,
yeah, that just tells you the Soviets didn't intend on letting their people get away. That meant they were going forward, and that was it.
Man, that's that stupid kind of mentality right there. You know, not one step back, blade. But if we step back, we could only lose 1 guy instead of 9. No step back, everyone die. And it's like, why? It's like that makes no sense. But moving on from that clip, we did get to see a pretty big haul for the Russians, Matthew. They got some stuff. I'm not going to read the caption. I'm just going to let y'all see the clip because the Russian Ministry of Defense put out this video today showing the war trophies that they got from Avdiivka. That guy right there was sucking his chest in, you know it. You can tell. Anyways. They got a damn M113, Matthew. They won the war.
Oh.
Yeah, look at that. It looks like a... Wait a minute, is that Shoigu?
It is Shoigu.
Dude, why is he wearing all leather? That does not look right. He does not need to do that again. No leather.
He's a biker man.
I don't know. I'm sure the chat will be coming up with all kinds of stuff on this.
What he says? He used to explain to him, there's the vehicle right here, and Shoigu said, he just mumbled something.
Let's hear what he did. Dude, he went...
He didn't even say anything legible. It's like, he don't even know how to speak. He's just looking at his thing like, oh, whatever.
Dude, that's what I need to start. You and me need to start doing to each other when we talk on the channel. I'll be like, wow, man, that was a crazy clip, wasn't it? You just need to go, Oh my god. Dude, he's going to do it again. You know it before this clip is over.
Кирпи в переводе на русский язык означает еж.
Now he's getting in the back of a Kirby.
Look, Shoigu, we've caught a Kirby. Can you believe it?
Есть таких машин выделено
Dude, he's about to go.
переданных. То есть если анализировать весь ряд, который стоит, получается, сталкиваемся в полном объеме со всем военным промышленным потенциалом, так точно.
Wait, why does he sound like he's like bedridden here? He went, oh yeah, there's a Kirby. You know, it's like, what is wrong with him?
Ну, понятно, что лучший автомат Калашников. Нет, все равно лезут.
И новое, и старое.
Это чей? Что это за зарядный гранатомет?
Это чей?
40 миллиметров. У нас это
Хорватия.
подсольный гранатомет.
Why is he a mouth breather? That just makes it worse, man. Like he breathes with his mouth open.
I don't do that.
Man, I don't. It's just I breathe through my nose. Look, he just got shown something. He just like sneers and starts walking off. Look at this. He's like, it's a grenade launcher. He's like, shit on you. Like it's just... Dang,
Although, really,
man.
to be honest, though, like, I don't even understand what the point of this is. Like, Shoigu doesn't even want to participate in the propaganda anymore. He's like, whatever. It's like, they're just guns laying on a table. It's like, what's the point of, like, you know, laying them out, bringing in, like, filmers and people like that to, like, show this? It's like, you're not showing anything. They don't have any winnings to show, so they're resorting to showing guns on a table.
Dude, he's still angry about Putin catching him in the lie about Cranky being captured. Because remember, it was like yesterday, he was like, President Putin, we have taken the city of Cranky. It is a glorious victory for Russia. And Putin went, eh. So now he's going to go around everywhere and go, eh, to everything. Like the guy sits there, we got an M113. He goes, dude. I'm getting a kick out of this guy.
That guy's face is disappointed too. The one that was showing him the guns, he looked like, "What? You don't care about my guns?" He's like, "What? Please look!" And the show goes,
But anyways, here's what Avdiivka looked like on satellite view on the 17th of February. Check that out. Pretty cool. Well, that's that. Moving on from that, and further down, we also got to see near Lazove, LOL. I literally titled this LOL. Y'all will see why. We're muting that. But you can see this drone coming down on a Ruski soldat. Oh, and he's whipping out the mag. He hit the drone with the mag, but it still blew up on him, so it didn't matter.
He thought he ate there.
Dude, he thought he was cooking. Instead, he got cooked.
Jeez. Why would you throw something at the bomb? It's like you're try to dodge it or something. Don't try to, like, toss something at it.
Disarm the bomb. Goes apeshit. Throws the mag at the drone and blows it up in his face. Dude, that is next level stupidity. But anyways, honestly, there wasn't really a lot he could do. He was pretty much screwed already. So I guess, you know, he kind of got to go out on his own terms by throwing the mag at it, but, you know, still didn't really help him. Moving on from that, however, and a little bit further down the lines and towards Novomikhailivka and Volodar, we got to see a Russian recovery vehicle, a Brem 1, getting destroyed out in the fields. We're going to be muting that. And here comes the FPV to deal with the Brim. Yankee with no brim! Boom, and there it goes. No more brim. You get brimless now.
It looked grim, but then they lost the brim. And now they're going to swim. Not really, they're going to drown.
If the Russians pulled out the brim, it get very grim. That's it. And moving on from that and that cheap junk, it's time for us to move on into our next clip, where we also got to see more Russians getting destroyed by FPV drones. Here it is. Chad music ensues, because no video is complete without Chad music. You know, or whatever. You know, just eat like bull testicles and drink raw milk or something, you know, like, I don't know what the Chads are doing anymore, but they're absolutely losing it. But you see some Russians here trying to work with their KAMAZ, I think, and the FPV drone is about to make them work the graves, you know what I mean?
Man, working that graveyard shift. They must be rookies or something out here because they are not eating.
Man, that was a full-on bar. Matthew is spitting bars. I gotta say, man, good googly moogly, that thing is juicy. I had to throw that
Just
in.
in case, just in case you can't hear or something like that, they put the Dutch symbol and the Russian flag so you know what's going on. Man, can you brighten the screen up a little bit? I can't hear it.
Dude, that's some next level. Like right there, I don't even know how to respond to that, man.
Oh, look, they're giving you two of them now.
Oh, well, look, oh.
It's got a whole aquarium on the top of it.
Man, call that the Atlanta Aquarium or the Georgia Aquarium because it's swimming. But moving on from that and down from that area and towards Robotny, we did get to see one clip showing an MTLB, just a random MTLB getting destroyed today by a TM62 anti-tank mine. I'm not kidding. They just dropped a whole anti-tank mine onto an MTLB to destroy it, but it did really good.
Man, this drone right here's got more error messages and warning codes than a BMW has on it. It's got GPS bad, glitch or compass error, lane switch 1 error. Everything's wrong.
Man, this thing's got more warning signs than some of those girls at college. I'll tell you what, man. But we can see that they dropped the anti-tank mine near the MTLB. The MTLB is running like a roach right now and trying to get out of there. And we see them watching it continue to move through the field. Oh my lord. It's gone. It's gone there, y'all. That is a loss.
This thing is pretty far away from home, 4,321 meters.
Man, that is a pretty good ways away.
Must have a pretty dang good antenna on it.
Must have some good range. And speaking of range, Matthew, it's time for the Russians to be home on the range as they attempted to assault southern Robotny today, but from what we know, it ended up being completely unsuccessful. Okay, well, anyways, we can watch the Russians assaulting here. And we'll see you tomorrow, Mark Hooper, you legend. It's good to see you tonight. But we can see the Russians continuing to push into Robotny. And in case y'all are wondering, I just want everyone to know in the live chat right now, some of y'all are probably thinking, I'm not reading the chat. No, I'm always reading the chat during the show. So I see all. Matthew sees all. I see all. So if you say something in the chat, we see it. So with that, that's the end of that clip, showing a little bit of the Russian assault in that area. From what we heard, it did fail. Moving on out of that bit of news, it's time for us to move on up to Kyiv to cover the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky here on day 731 of the war. And let me make sure to take y'all to the really good address that happened today. This one is actually from the Hostomel airport, which is almost considered to be the very beginning of the war, kind of the birthplace of the war in Ukraine, was this very airfield. But let me get the subtitles in English, or we could put them in Chinese. That would be really kidding with you. But anyways, without further ado, speech!
Я знаходжусь зараз в Гостомелі. Саме звідси мало розпочатись те саме взяти Київ і Україну за 3 дні. Можна сказати одним реченням. 2 роки тому ми вогнем зустрічали тут ворожий десант. 2 роки по тому ми зустрічаємо тут наших друзів, наших партнерів. Прем'єрка Італії Джорджа Мелоні, голова G7, прем'єр-міністр Канади Джастін Трюдо, Урсула фон дер Ляєн, президентка Єврокомісії, Олександр Де Крoo, прем'єр Бельгії, що головує у Європейській Раді. І це символічно і красномовно описує шлях, який ми пройшли за ці 2 роки. І різницю між 24 лютого тоді і зараз. Знаєте, мимоволі сьогодні кожен українець згадує той день. І у кожного є своє власне 24-те. Унікальний спогад того дня. Як ти прокинувся, хто перший тобі написав, як ти, кому першому ти подзвонив, кого ти обійняв міцно, що сказав тоді своїм найближчим людям. І найважливіше, що ти зробив далі. Мільйони різних історій, але у багатьох є схожий епізод. Це вибір, який зробили українці різного віку, різних професій, з різних регіонів, який поєднав людей. Спочатку в чергах до військкомату, далі в одному окопі на лінії фронту, щоб захищати країну. І всі ті, хто залишився, аби працювати в країні, хто поїхав, хто потім повернувся. І так вже 2 роки. Ми стали на 730 днів ближче до перемоги. Хтось чекає на якогось віщуна, щоб сказав, коли вона настане, а мільйони українців просто пам'ятають слова Кобзаря. Борітеся, поборете. І слідують цьому вже 730 днів. Самовідданості і відваги. Вони гартуються на сході, на півдні, півночі, у всіх напрямках, де б'ються наші воїни. 730 днів стійкості і витримки. Вони стоять опорами в усіх цивільних містах і селах. І сьогодні кожен з нас подзвонить свої, почути рідні голоси, побажати один одному те, що так чекаємо. І сьогодні кожен з нас, на жаль, має когось про кого помовчати і вшанувати пам'ять. І всі разом ми схиляємо голови перед 730 днів болю. Але водночас 730 днів надії на найвищу справедливість, яка полягає в тому, що у всіх нас різні історії початку війни. Але має бути єдиний фінал цієї війни. І буде перемога. І згадуючи все, що пройшли за ці 2 роки, розумієш, інакше бути не може. Згадуючи, що вже зробили українці, знаєш, ми точно зможемо. Нам під силу, нам вдасться і тут, у цьому місці, як найкраще розумієш, може не витримати метал, але не українці. Можна спалити літак, але неможливо знищити мрію, з якої 730 днів кожен з нас засинає, прокидається, з якою засинаєш ти, ви, всі ми, всі наші громадяни, всі українці. Народ, який вистояв у перші 3 дні і не впав на 4-й, виборов 5-й день, а далі місяць, далі 6 місяців, і ось тепер 2 роки битви за свободу, битви за життя, яку героїчно ведуть неймовірні люди, до яких я завжди промовляю у зверненнях. Великі народи, великої країни. І неймовірно, я пишаюсь кожною. Я захоплююсь кожним і кожною, вірю в кожного і в кожного. І будь-яка нормальна людина хоче, аби війна закінчилась, але ніхто з нас не дозволить, аби закінчилась Україна наша. Саме тому до слів завершення війни ми завжди додаємо на наших умовах. Саме тому біля слова «мир» завжди звучить «справедливий». Саме тому в майбутній історії біля слова «Україна» завжди стоятиме слово «незалежно». Боремось за це вже 730 днів нашого життя і переможемо у найкращий день нашого життя. Я дякую всім вам, воїни, дякую нашому народу і всім в світі, хто стоїть поруч з нами і з правдою. Слава Україні!
And Heron Slava.
Slava.
And with that is the end of the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky, and that brings us on into the second segment of this stream, where we get to talk to all of y'all. That's right, everyone who sent in a super chat, and everyone who sent in a live chat. Hopefully everyone who has. But before we even get into it, I hate to give the same kind of preface that I gave last night, but we have a very large amount of super chats tonight again, and I've got to say that we are wildly thankful to everyone in the Leaf Spring Army who is supporting the channel. We are, of course, going to make sure to address every single super chat that has come in, even if it's just $1 or if it's $500, which is the cap, like Snow White sent in last night. We will make sure to address each and every single one of them. However, it does greatly limit our ability to be able to get to any volume of a large volume of live chats. We always will get to some, but we always want to prioritize super chatters in getting their questions answered and take our time to answer them, because the folks who support the channel through the super chats are really the only way that we are able to keep this channel running. So we always want to make sure that we show a high level of appreciation to them and make sure to take our time addressing their questions and thanking them for finding this channel worthwhile enough to help to keep running. And so with that, what do we got, Matthew?
All right, so we had one last poll to address, and the question said, Zelensky says martial law prevents elections in Ukraine, but says he would win anyway. And what are your thoughts? 63% said Zelensky would win anyway. 21% said bad statement, he should have waited for the election to say that. And 5% said Zelensky would likely lose. And in my opinion, I think that if Zelensky did run for a second term, I think he would win personally. I'm not sure who else would even run. I'm sure there are some contenders in Ukraine to compete with him, but I think Zelensky would come out on top. But me personally, on the statement that I would win anyway, I would have personally held off from that one. That was a little bit bold to make, especially considering the election can't be held right now. I would have probably just left it at martial law prevents it, and we'll have to wait until it can finally happen. I wouldn't have added the little last part there. But, you know, people aren't perfect, and, you know, statements like that might be made. We understand that he meant it in good intentions, I think. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say he probably would win again, but that's not a good statement to make when your country can't hold an election and it's a contended topic, because that sounds like I'm president for life, I'd win anyway, so who cares about the election? That's how it can be taken. And of course, propagandists are going to spin it that way. So I would say he would win again. I mean, there's not really an argument there, but nevertheless, not really the best thing to say at this point in time. But still, with that, I hope that does address that quite well indeed. And we are on to the next one.
And with that, we're moving into our super chat questions yet again, and our first one is going to go to AJ, who puts in a $50 donation, and huge thank you, AJ, for that support. And let me get rid of this. We have a Chinese bot here with a fortune cookie behind their name. I've seen everything. But anyways, moving on from that, AJ put in that 50, and thank you very much, AJ, for that support. He says, I'm also back after a break, a longtime LSA member, but mostly lurk. Best wishes to you both and all the LSA and the Slava Ukraine.
Matty, are you laughing at what I just did right there?
No, I was laughing at something somebody said about the bot, but I can't repeat it. But anyways.
Oh, wait, hang on, let me look. I'm looking. Dang it, I can't see
I'll send it to you. If you can't find it, I'll send it to you.
Send it to me over text, not on the Discord, because I can't pull up the Discord on air. But Matty, before we move on from the Chinese bot, though, I want to make sure to say something for my Chinese friend. 小熊好像我欣赏我有冰淇淋，我很喜欢冰淇淋。But anyways,
on the floor. Watch out, your economy's failing. Watch out, the Evergrande failed. Watch out. You're not getting Taiwan. Watch out. Thank you. Bye-bye.
But anyways, moving on from that, I would like to thank AJ for the amazing support and helping this channel to keep on running. And also, welcome back, AJ! Back after a long break, absolute legend. I'm happy to have you here, AJ. We are having legends return in the droves. The golden age really has returned, and we've got the legends here with us. We got Jesus UCSB, we got AJ, we got everybody. Now we're just waiting for a couple others to return, like Angry Penguin and Mark, the kinetic possum. They are currently missing. I'm sure they're probably watching or lurking or something similar, but for now, for what we know, they're missing. Angry Penguin is actually taking a break from the war, just to clarify that. We got told that a little bit in the middle of the stream. But beyond that, you are a longtime LSA member, AJ. No doubt about it. And you mostly lurk, mostly
below the shadows of the Leaf Spring Army. AJ lurks, making sure to receive any bots that get through the live chat and maul them.
But nevertheless, best wishes to you, AJ, and best wishes to all of the LSA as well. Thank you for wishing them all the best, and of course, Slava Ukraini, and thank you once again for the support. Also, I want to take a quick memento, to show y'all something interesting that I saw when I went back and I looked at the figures and the graphs and everything else. So y'all might be interested to know this. Very interested. Very, very interested indeed to know this. And I think I'm actually going to shock all of y'all. Because AJ is a day 4 old guard member. Came around on day 4 of the war. Back on day 1, this was our live chat. Well, not live chat. Our live stream peak concurrent viewership was a whopping 6 people 14 minutes in.
That was day 1 that you started streaming the war?
That was literally like hour 1 of the war. 6 people watched at the peak. And I think this thing got like...
it was that low. I thought it was higher than that.
No. It was low. Very low. Because a lot of people think that I did this because it was viral. No, I actually had no idea that this channel would become viral at the start. That is a really good example to show right here. Because the average viewership over an hour and 20 minutes was 2 people at one moment live. So there was no one watching when I first did this.
I think our thumbnail game kind of like improved like 30-fold as well, depending on this thumbnail.
No doubt. But I'm going to take y'all to something else. Let me take that off screen because I want to make sure that we're not showing anything that might be able to give some haters credence. But let me make sure to go down here. So the next day, this was actually today, the 24th of February, 2 years ago. This was the peak viewership here. And you can see that I was getting the viewership I was getting before, but for some reason, 30 minutes in, it blew up and it got up to 40. And that day, I actually felt like I was making a lot of traction on YouTube, getting up to 40 live viewers. So I was like, wow. I was like, that is so cool. And it was really neat to know that people actually cared a little bit about what I was doing at that point. That was the 24th of February. That was this very day, 2 years ago. 2 February 24ths ago. That was what it looked like. So then, taking y'all on from that and on into the next one, Enemy at the Gates of Kyiv. This one did not do as well. It only got up to 13 viewers at the peak, and it averaged 8 over the whole stream. But it was a lot more than day 1, or hour 1. It was actually 400% more, so still doing really good by the 25th of February. I was really happy with where I was going with this. But it was, and let me see here. It was this one, I believe, and let me go see. No, it was not that one. So just to kind of like give you all the summary before I move on to the one where I blew up. The next stream after that, this was day 3. The peak viewership was 31 viewers. The average was 20. So the channel was growing a viewership, but it was literally minute. It was non-existent really compared to what we do now. And then this here is... this here actually is the stream where the channel blew up. I'll show you all this because this is so cool even now. So this stream had 1.4 thousand watch hours, 152 subscribers, which was really nuts. Those were the subscribers that got after it ran live. It actually got like 1.7 thousand subscribers live. Had this thumbnail. The title was Ukraine Survives. It was a 2-hour and 10-minute long stream. You can actually go back and watch this. It's still live and viewable on the channel. This was the chat rate over the course of the stream. The peak was 256 in a single minute. And it was nearer to the very end of the stream. And that was the viewer graph. It only got up to 3.8 thousand people, and I thought that the channel had gone viral back then. Right now, to put this into perspective, the peak on this stream way back then is still about 300 to 400 viewers below where we're at right now on this stream. And this is considered a low point for viewership about 2 hours in. So that is whack, to look at that, because this was the day right here that I blew up, and I had no idea the whole time I was running this stream that the viewership was massively increasing. And this whole thing that I just showed y'all was a roundabout way to say that out of one of these live viewers here on day 4, AJ was one of them. BC Skyman was also one of them as well, and a whole bunch of other people were also one of these nearly 80,000 people who had watched that stream that day, or one of the 3.8 thousand people who were here live. You were one of those people, AJ. And I gotta say...
What day did I jump on? Was it 2 weeks in or something?
it was a good while in, I think. I think if we go to one of the Discord servers, the fan servers, and I think you know which one I'm talking about, Matthew, UWD, I think they actually have a timeline of important events, and they actually catalog the day that you first were on air. I think it was like day 20-something.
Interesting. Oh, yeah, yeah. I think I do see that, actually. Let's see. Let's see. Day 22. It was a few weeks in was the day of Matt. I didn't know we had an LSA history like this in here. Like they've cataloged the entire history of the channel. That's impressive, I gotta say.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Man, they literally have a day for Matt got rickrolled. Is that the most important thing that happened on day 402? What the hell?
Dude,
What is this?
Dude, I actually love that Discord server. They're really fun in there. I don't get to hang out though a lot, sadly, in that server, but I think it's really cool. But beyond that, I hope that does oh, thank you for getting that, Matthew. I was about to get him. But
and also, by the way, I'm just joking. By the way, the UWD server is the coolest fan server, by the way, and huge shout out to Nutters and everyone else who runs it as well, because it is super cool over there. We don't run a Discord anymore because we don't want that hassle. But they're kindly taking that hassle on and running a Discord, not on our behalf, just because they wanted to. So huge thanks to them for that because it's really a cool thing.
Yeah, huge shout out. They do a really cool stuff in there, and they also, I believe, actually have a very accurate catalog of all of our fundraisers that we've ever run and their total. There also is another one on the hot dog vendors channel, you know, because they are weird, obsessive, sick people, and they try and spin it a different way. But beyond that, AJ, you were one of these people right here. I know you're a lurker because this was almost 2 years ago at this point. Actually, I believe this was a Sunday when the stream ran, or it was a Monday, because we actually ran on Mondays back then for like the first month. We literally ran 7 days a week. Well, actually, I ran 7 days a week, and then Matthew joined, and then for the next 2 weeks after he joined on, we ran 7 days a week, and then I bumped it down to 6. And then we just kept that schedule from there forward. But beyond that, you were one of these people, AJ, and it is so cool to know that this was 2 years ago at this point, 2 years, and you're still here and you're still enjoying the channel and you still want to see the channel keep running. I got to thank you for the support. I got to thank you for the best wishes because you've been giving us best wishes for 2 years now, and we're one of the viewers that made this graph climb the way it did that night. It means a lot to me, and I got to thank you so much once again. I got to thank you for being one of those old guards, the traditional old guards of the LSA, before we even revised what an old guard was, because for folks who also don't know this, there is a certain group of viewers on this channel who I call old guards, and traditionally the old guards were the people who were here on day 4 and before that, which was a very small number of viewers. A little bit later on, I think it was about 1.5 years after the war began, so it was sometime last year, I revised the codex pretty much of who's an old guard and who isn't, and everyone who was watching the stream during the first month and subscribed during the first month is now technically an old guard. But even by the traditional sense, AJ is an old guard through and through and has been with this channel forever. And I gotta say, thank you so much for wishing us well. Thank you so much for being here for so long. And of course, long live the Lee Spring Army. The Lee Spring Army will never die, and Slava Ukraini. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next super chat we have is from Mark Gagne, who throws in a very generous $50 donation.
Hey!
And he puts in a super sticker of it looks like maybe a Nintendo 64 controller jumping around doing the peace sign. I don't think it's a Game Boy, because a Game Boy is a all-in-one thing. That's just a controller. But it says super effective. And man, I'm telling you what, I like that. That's like something the Chinese bot might say, like super effective. But anyways, thank you very much, Mark, for that support. And Enforcer, what say you?
And thank you for the massive support, Mark Gagne. Thank you for the support and helping the channel to keep running. And I gotta say, I like that little emoji, the little guy saying there, bam, bam, you know, just beating up air and then saying super effective. And I gotta say, that is super effective. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address that well. And of course, thank you for being a legend on this channel as well, because I believe you are an old guard. And Marcia Tucker said, I've been called old guard, though I didn't get here until July 22nd. Marcia, you're an honorary old guard because you've been present in the live chat since then for so long. You just got meshed in my head with all of the traditional old guards. So you're an honorary old guard. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. Thank you so much once again for supporting Mark Gagne. And also another thing I'd like to say, now that we've shown that graph and I kind of talked about it a little bit, there have been a few people who aren't with the channel, they watched briefly and then they moved on. And there's probably a good reason, because I'm about to say something that we knew when they said it. We were like, that can't be true. Some people have come onto the channel before and said, I was here on day one. And some people were, but the chances of being here and watching the stream on day one, considering that I think the actual viewership was like 50 something people that day, is literally impossible. Like the amount of people who watch this show monthly is around 2.2 million people. And so out of 2.2 million people, for one of those people to be one of the 50 that were watching on day one, we always know that the chances are really slim. And on top of that, one of those people that watched the entire stream was one of my friends. So I know that out of the 6 people at the peak that were watching, and the 2 that were watching on average the whole stream, one of them I know personally. The other person I did not know, and then the other 5 people that joined at the peak, I didn't know them either. So the actual chances of someone being a day one LSA old guard is slim to none. I mean, like there's really only one person I know of that actually lays the claim to that title, and it's one of the friends that I know. But with that, I hope that does address that well, and I hope that does clear something up, because if you say in this chat that you are a day one old guard trying to get some LSA clout, I know who was watching on day one for the most part, so you're gonna have to be getting out the papers. You're gonna have to be getting out the papers and backing it up with facts. But with that, I hope that does.
Where are your papers?
Well,
I mean, there's people in history that said, where are your papers, that have not gone very well, man. I don't know. You want to show your papers?
Where are the papers? Show me the papers. But still, with that, Schultz! But still, with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next super chat goes to Margaret Hemsley, who is an old guard indeed. And Margaret throws in a very generous $31 donation, and thank you very much for that. And she says, I missed yesterday's celebration because of work. And damn. And I enjoyed listening later, though. And I'm excited to see what the future holds for the both of you and this channel. And I can't listen live today either. My MIL's birthday lunch.
And happy birthday! Happy birthday to MIL. And also, I hate to hear that you missed yesterday. I did notice that you weren't in here, but nevertheless, thank you so much for being here with us tonight, at least for a short while, and thank you for supporting the channel. And I hope that when you're watching this back, because you weren't really able to be here with us the entire night here as well, I hope that you're able to hear that we were happy to know that you were here for at least a short while, and that you're always with the Lee Spring Army, even as a lurker. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that quite well indeed. And with that, we are on to the next one. Thank you once again, Margaret Hemsley, for being one of those old guards. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $20 super chat from BC Skyman, who's a longtime channel legend, who throws in the Doge waving the #1 sign. And thank you for that. And we also have a $20 super chat from Jose Diaz as well, without a comment. But thank you, Jose and BC. We always have a ton of old guards every night. And I feel like for every super chat, I always say, and they're old guards, because they truly are. Jose and BC have been here for ages. And they truly deserve the title Old Guard. So thank you to both of you for that support. And Enforcer, what say you?
And I got to thank both of y'all, Jose Diaz and BC Scammer, for the support. Y'all both are old guards. And I gotta say this. This is something that really does impress us in 2 ways. The old guards are one of the main groups of people on this channel who super chat and support this channel and make our operations possible. I would say that 70% of super chats every single night, I am ending them off by saying, and you're an old guard, and thank you for being here for so long. And that really does just humble us so much to know that somehow y'all have been able to handle and bear us for 2 years and still find this channel to be worth something to be able to support it. It also really blows us away because there's so many old guards who always support, like you, BC Skyman and Jose Diaz. When new folks come in and support the channel, like tonight, and let me make sure that I get it correct, Richard Hawkins, because I was about to say Richard Stevens for some reason. Richard Hawkins threw in 100, and it's his first super chat ever. That blows us away when new people super chat the channel, because they weren't around to see the humble beginnings of the channel and know why we are doing this and why we're here, but they still appreciate the channel enough to support it anyways. And I got to thank both the new super chatters and the old guards who are always super chatting for helping this channel to keep running, just like you, BC Skyman, and you, Jose Diaz, have done tonight, because all of y'all make this thing possible. And I gotta say, thank y'all so much for just really enjoying what really just enjoying Matthew and me enough that y'all like to be able to help us to do this as a job and keep us on air so we can keep talking to all of y'all. And also, BC Scum said, you keep our hopes up too. And yeah, that I do. Not to go on a rant about that, but that's one thing that people on the YouTube world are starting to lose sight of. Of course, most of the Ukraine war YouTubers, much like they've gone political, they've also lost sight of Ukraine war YouTube channels are some of the biggest ways that people keep up to date with what's going on in the war. So crying and whining to those people don't really keep them encouraged to want to support Ukraine. In fact, it looks like it has spread, at least tonight, to some other old guards on the channel, and they were starting to talk about, oh, they're not showing what's really going on, we need a crying session. And I'm not like belittling that viewer who said that at all, but you know, at the same time, people don't get, yes, I see what's going on. I really know what's going on both sides. I've watched pretty much everyone who's ever been killed on film get killed over 2 years, both Ukrainians and Russians. I see all of them. It's just that I never show the Ukrainian ones. And the reason why is because there are Ukrainians watching here tonight, Ukrainian soldiers as well. Alpha is probably one of the best ones, because while I was saying that on stream, Alpha, who's been here for a while, popped in. He was like, yeah, we're watching, because Alpha is one of the Ukrainian soldiery. And there are soldiers from Ukraine who watch this show, and while we are unbiased on our battlefield analysis, we want to make sure that we keep Ukrainian soldiers' spirits high, and showing them their own brethren getting blown away, it's not going to keep their morale high. Yes, I know what's going on. I see everything. I really do. You know, and if y'all wanted to, I could start trying, well, I probably wouldn't, because Patreon's really iffy these days. But I was going to say I could make a special kind of summary, maybe weekly, and put it onto Patreon that actually shows everything. Russian losses, Ukrainian losses I was able to compile, and everything else. And I could show y'all what's really going on completely without having to worry about morale loss or anything like that, because, you know, that's something I put into big consideration here on this channel. But that's why I don't show that stuff. And a lot of Ukraine war YouTubers don't get that anymore, is that we aren't just news channels, we are also cheerleaders, pretty much, for the Ukrainians. And I take that job very seriously. That's why we always laugh at everything that the Ukrainians do. We always try and keep our spirits high on this channel, because we want to keep Ukrainian soldiers' spirits high, and we want to keep Ukraine war supporters' spirits high. Because if morale is lost, the war is lost. If the Ukrainians could hold back the Russians just by having high hopes, then the war can be won or lost on its own, just from high hopes or low hopes. But with that, I hope that does address that well. And thank you once again to both of y'all for the support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, real quick, I'm going to jump out of order for a second to address a super chat from Arrays Martinez. And they put in a $5 donation. And first off, thank you very much for that support. And they said, not a day passes that I don't enjoy the channel, and I wish you guys would have more guests on, but understandable with all the trolls, and great job anyways, y'all. And thank you very much for that. And also, I'm sure the Enforcer is going to have something to say about this as well. But for me personally, just my personal belief is, I'm not a fan of collaborating with other Ukraine war YouTubers, not me personally. And here's why. Because I think there are other people, for example, Ukrainian leadership, there's people that run nonprofits for Ukraine that would have a more neutral and honestly a more competent view of things. Like, we want to bring on guests that actually bring value. And other YouTubers are simply going to have their own opinions like we do. And to me, I really don't see any value in that. They can have their own opinions. They have their own places to espouse those opinions. And also, to be honest with you, perfectly honest, I'm not a huge fan of too many of the pro-Ukraine YouTubers out there, because they're kind of a little bit bad acting toward us, is the way I'm going to put it. They've done nasty things in the past. So we, or at least to me, it seems like maybe operating on our own is the best way to go, and bringing on guests that actually bring value. But Enforcer, what say you?
Now Arrays Martinez, thank you for the support. And also, Matthew was trying to say that in a more political way, trying to make sure to say it in a good way, but I'm going to say it in a very frank way from our experience. Back at the beginning of the channel, I was actually the one who was spearheading the idea of having guests on our show. I was actually the only reason that guests came on the show, because I like the idea of trying to become friends with other people who I thought were like-minded, and also, not only that, for people to really be for the cheerleading to continue, because people love YouTuber A and they love us, so why not have them both on the same stream? It's going to make people really happy. And on top of that, we always brought guests on back in the day on fundraiser nights, because I knew it would create more hype, therefore more support would go to the fundraisers, therefore more support for Ukraine. Over time, I started to get the feeling from certain guests that they didn't really want to be on this channel, and they were just here kind of because they had to be, which I don't really know how to explain why they had to be here, but that's how they kind of acted off air before we would go live or after we went live. And also, a lot of YouTubers seem to have just come here because we are the largest Ukraine war YouTube stream by the numbers, and they wanted to get exposure. And that's what it seemed like a lot of them wanted to do. And we started to pick up on that after a while, especially, and I do not mean to say this by giving too much off, but that really came off very well after the incident happened in October last year, which you could pretty much just call the YouTuber war, where most of the Ukraine war community, not knowing the situation and being completely ignorant to it, jumped to the defense of another YouTuber that was threatening our lives, doxing us daily, and a whole bunch of other things. And when we tried to respond to that, and also in a rightful legal way, they all decided to jump on that bandwagon instead of ours. And what was interesting is that a lot of people who jumped on that bandwagon had been treated with nothing but respect by me, especially, and had even been given shout-outs on this channel. Two of them in particular, I know, got many thousands, if not tens of thousands of subscribers because we shouted them out here on this channel, because I actually appreciated their work and efforts, and did absolutely nothing to slight them in any way. In fact, even behind the scenes, if they ever show you the emails I would send them or the Discord messages I'd send them, I treated everybody as nice as I could, because I, respect people. I know what it's like to be a YouTuber, and I don't want to create additional strife or drama or anything like that for no reason. Because I'm not that way. You can ask anyone I know in person. I'm actually quite nice in person, because I just like being nice. But those people decided to stab us in the back with almost no qualms about it. And that is something that has really stuck with me to this day, to the point that I'm not a big fan of really having any guests on at all. And on top of that, another thing that really showed to me last night is that last night was the 2nd-year anniversary of the war in Ukraine. Last anniversary, we had 3 guests on. This anniversary, we had no guests. I didn't even attempt to try and get guests on. And we did better last night by the viewership metric than we did with guests. Well, with massive guests. Some guests were way larger than our channel, and they came on, and we did worse. And we did better just being ourselves and not having any guests on at all. And that was something that really stuck out to me as well. Another thing is that, just to be very frank, we're very different on the way we act compared to a lot of Ukraine war YouTubers. And I'm not going to say a lot about this, but some people are going to know exactly what I'm talking about, because they were the ones who brought this up to us. But there was a certain YouTuber out there who has been covering this war that we plugged on this channel a while ago, and we've even showed some of his clips here on the channel. And they sat there on their video, and it was a video where they were all hanging out. A whole bunch of these Ukraine war YouTubers were hanging out and doing some goofy stuff in Ukraine. But beyond that, one thing that they said was F the LSA, and screw, pretty much screw the community. And if you know who we're talking about, that's exactly who we're talking about. And when I saw that, I was like, okay, it's one thing to have a problem with Matthew and me and not like us, but it's another problem to hate our community that's done nothing to anyone and is nothing more than a force of good in the Ukraine war world. That was a whole other thing. Because, I get it when people say F the enforcers, like, yeah, people are not going to like me, that's clear. But when people say F the LSA, that takes it to a different level to me, and I actually legitimately get pissed, because it's like, why in the world are you going to take out maybe your dislike of me and Matthew onto all of our viewers? That makes no sense at all. And another thing is that beyond us being a decent bit different, honestly, I say we're not to the level of just being like degenerate hooligans, pretty much, off air, just hanging out with people, which we're very different from most of them on. Another thing is that we get shit on by other YouTubers because we're young. A lot of these YouTubers are in their 30s and 40s, and the reason why they got into YouTube is because they had nothing else to do. And so, we're in our early 20s. I'm 22, and I'm doing this, and we end up getting more traction and more viewership and more subscribers than most of these other people. And then they just decide, look, it's a young guy, it's a quick, easy target to take a shit on and say that, the guy's stupid and he's an idiot, really with no backing whatsoever, and just to not like the guy because he's in his young 20s. Because that's the kind of vibe that we've gotten from everyone that we've ever had on as a guest that is older than us, which is literally everyone, is that everyone wanted to kind of treat us differently because we were younger. And also act like we were stupid and we didn't know what we were talking about. And that was,
I think a bigger part of it, and I've mentioned this before we brought any of the guests on, was even though we're acting in good faith here, we're raising money for Ukraine, and we brought these people on in good faith, thinking they were going to come on and be cordial, and they were going to leave and it'd be all kind and everything. That was a little bit naive. But before they came on, I said, I'm not sure if that's a good idea, because they're basically, in their minds, competitors to us. So when they're coming on, they're trying to take away our subscribers and viewers and things for their own benefit. And they're really not coming on because they really want to support the cause and help the fundraiser. They're really coming on to see if they can try to, scrape a few viewers off to take back to their place. And that sounds crass, but I think that's the reality of it, because when they left, the majority of them went and trash talked us, and
like
not
the
just
day
behind our
after.
back, but publicly. Yeah, the day afterward. And we had been, it was kind, like we spoke to them friendly on the Discord calls and everything. But every single one of them consistently turned around and basically stuck a knife into our back. And it's like, what the hell? It's like, I can only chalk it up to they really didn't care for us to begin with, and they just came on to try to use us at that point. But it's crappy to see people acting like that, because I was hoping that maybe I was wrong, because I'm kind of cynical about that kind of thing sometime. But in fact, I was proven right, and I was proven even more right than I had previously thought.
And another thing that I'd like to add, because I've seen a lot of people actually asking us to step in and say something about a certain situation about a Patreon account getting suspended. And the reason why we've said nothing about that, I'm not going to say a lot because I'm not trying to create a beef, but I'll tell you all why. Because, I like to try and be as transparent as possible, but I don't want anything to come out of this. It's just the actual background as to why we didn't step in. So the particular person that happened to, when I was growing up in high school, I actually loved that YouTube channel. I would watch it all the time. When a new video came out, I was on top of it. And so when we were running the stream, we got an email from that particular person, and they invited us on to be a guest. Well, didn't invite us, just invited me alone and just threw Matthew to the curb to be a guest on their podcast, which I was over the moon about, because I emailed them back and I was like, absolutely, I'll be on your podcast. Watched your stuff in high school. I was a huge fan. I would love to be on, love to watch the stuff. And then the date was scheduled, and the date came up on that day, and I was sitting there waiting to get in a call or something to be able to go on to this podcast, and it never came through. And then an hour or two later, I was sent a message saying, hey man, I don't feel that great. I feel kind of sick, so I'm not going to do it. So I said, oh, okay, that's fine. Well, let's reschedule. Okay, how about this day, which was a month later? And I said, okay, sure, no problem. I'll take that date then. We'll show up then. So a whole other month goes by. It's the day before that podcast, and then I get sent an email saying, hey man, I got something that came up. I won't be able to do the podcast. And I'm sorry about that, but we can reschedule for next month. And I said, okay, sure, no problem. And then the next day, I get a notification, and it's their channel, it's their podcast channel, and they had made a podcast with a whole other guest that was not me on that day that I was supposed to be on. And I got a little slighted. I'm not gonna lie, I did get a little bit slighted by that, because I was like, well, that I just got flat out lied to about that. There was nothing going on at all. They just didn't want me on as a guest. They just picked someone else, and I was their backup, I'm guessing. And so then the next one comes around, and then there's literally just no message at all. That day comes up, the scheduled day that we agreed on a month before for me to be on their podcast, comes around. I'm not on it. They do another podcast with a whole other guest, and it goes up that day, and I just get no message, no nothing saying, hey, it's canceled, or I'm not feeling well, or nothing, just no explanation, and then I just dropped it. And my opinion of that person changed a lot, because they went from being someone that I actually really liked when I was growing up in high school, and I was a big fan of all the way up until that point, to once again being slighted and treated like crap in the background, because I'm young or because they don't take me seriously or something like that. Which is
And also, I've got a similar story as well. I actually supported some of our strongest haters. Believe it or not, I was actually pretty deep in supporting their channels before I even got on the stream. Going over and, putting in kind words and things, supporting their cause and what they're doing. Because I'm for anybody that raises money for Ukraine at this point. I'm like, I don't care if you're somebody who has different beliefs than me or whatever. If you're raising money for Ukraine, that's all I care about. But the people that I supported the strongest were the ones that ended up turning around and stabbing me and the enforcer in the back the worst, and have done things that I would have never imagined in a million years that they would try to do to us, like doxing our home address, making threats against our life. It's like, it's disappointing to see how some people act. Like, it's really disappointing. And everybody's been through it, I think. A lot of y'all in the live chat will know. Y'all have had experiences like that. But it feels like we've had it like on a rapid, really fast track, because we've dealt with just so many different people on this YouTube channel in a short period of time. And we're still pretty young. So we've dealt with a lot of crap for our age.
And also, really quickly to wrap up my story real quick. So that all happened behind the scenes. Honestly, lost a lot of respect after that. And some people are saying you don't know a whole story. No, I know the story well enough, because when you say on an email that you're sick and you're going to not run a podcast the next day, so we're just going to reschedule, and then that next day you record a podcast with someone else, another guest on that day, and you're not sick at all on air, you sound perfectly fine, I know they're lying. It's like, there's not really a lot of an extra story to be had there. That was just an outright lie. And that was something I did not respect at all, because I don't lie to people. I'm honest to them. And so after that, everything's going by. The Patreon gets deleted, and some people have come up to us and said, oh, why don't y'all say something to try and get his Patreon reinstated? I mean, unfortunate, because everyone is doing this as a business, and everyone is doing this to make a living. But at the same time, it's like, I'm not going to step in, because, we got slighted for no reason. I didn't even do anything to the guy. I told him I was a huge fan and a massive supporter of his channel and had been for years, and then just got slighted out of nowhere 3 times in a row. So, with that in mind, I was like, no, I'm not saying anything about that Patreon. It is what it is. But anyways, that's why we don't have guests on, Reyes, to explain that in long form, all of the bad experiences that we've had behind the scenes, and really not trying to create YouTube beefs, but giving you a lot of how we view things and how things happen to us. That's why we wouldn't want guests on from YouTube, other YouTubers. We will take guests on from other places. Like if General Petraeus wanted to come on, we'd be more than happy to have him as a guest. If anyone wanted to come on outside of YouTube, we would be way more than happy to have them on as a guest. We would love to have them on and get to talk to them. We probably wouldn't make it on the live stream, though, because this live stream runs a specific way that isn't really conducive to guests. We would probably make it a special video that would come out in the midday that would have been pre-recorded and done that way. But I hope
who I'm trying to get on right now, by the way. I'll let y'all know who we're trying to get on right now, or at least I'm in the process of trying to reach out. And right now they're a little bit tied up and a little bit busy because of the march in D.C., and they're helping out tremendously with that. It's Razom for Ukraine. I'm trying to get one of their top people on here, or at least willing to speak, or maybe record a pre-recorded video for y'all. But really, to be honest with you, if they'd come on, that would be even a better thing, to have a live Q&A while we're live. And Razom's been one of the main charities we've been raising money for the entire time we've been fundraising. So we think very highly of Razom. We've also raised money for other charities as well. But I think starting with them would be a good start for bringing on nonprofit leaders to speak on the channel.
I would agree. And hopefully we might be able to get them on. But that's if they respond to our emails. And so with that, hope that does address that well. Thank you once again for the support of Reyes Martinez. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And real quick, we have a poll to address. It says, do you want to see more guests on the Enforcer channel? And if so, which do you prefer? 33% said, yes, I want Ukraine leadership. Only 8% said they want the nonprofit leaders. 30% said very rarely and only special events. And 29% said, no, I just want the usual Enforcer. So, Enforcer, what do you say about that?
I would have to say, very interesting poll results. It was like an even split on 3 whole different options. But I would say, as far as the live stream goes, it's just going to be usual Enforcer, but we may be able to have guests in special videos, in interviews that we make in the future, which would be really cool. Because I'm not against the idea of having guests, but I am certainly against the idea of having any future YouTube guests, even if we're on okay terms with them, because I think there's maybe a few of like you can count them on just a few fingers of YouTubers that we're on okay terms with or even good terms with, but we don't really talk to any YouTubers much to know. You know, like they're good. It's just I'm not going to have guests on, to put it that way. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. Hopefully that made a little bit of sense. Because another thing, like just to throw this out before we move on, another thing that was kind of interesting is that we've been on Twitter for a while. For well over a year. When was that Twitter created, Matthew? Like 2023, 2022, something like that?
Yeah, it was actually my old account, but I converted it over to an Enforcer, like legit, like organization account. So I actually created this and changed it over to our like brand account, and I think it was actually exactly 1 year ago at this point, because I started it around March or February of last year, and 13,000 followers is what we're up to, by the way. We put a ton of work into Twitter at this point.
So this Twitter has been around for a hot minute, a really long time. And we've had it in action for countless months. It's been well over a year, I believe, at this point that this thing has been running. And someone who runs a YouTube channel, this is one of the more recent things, we're like, what the hell is this passive aggressive stuff that people do? Like, so anyways, someone who has also been on Twitter, probably for the same length of time, and has known about this channel's existence and has talked about us on their channel, followed us on Twitter. And so Matthew reached out to him and said, oh, well, that's cool that you followed us. It was pretty neat. And then we got like I don't know, maybe we were misunderstanding this one, but we almost got like a passive aggressive response back of, oh, I didn't even know y'all were on Twitter. It's like, how do you not? Like, you've mentioned the channel for like the entire time that Twitter's existed on your channel, like every month or so. How in the world do you not know? And it's like little things like that. It's like why in the world are you like? Well, I didn't know you had it. Like, that was it. That's all he said, because we responded to that tweet. Well, not that tweet, that DM, and then we never got a response back. It's like, what is up with this passive aggressive stuff? Like, it's like we try and be polite to people, and then they're passive aggressive, and they just do weird. I don't know what it is. Like, to be honest, it's not even worth really discussing a lot. But it's just stuff like that where it's like, yeah, I think we're not going to have any YouTubers on at all as guests, because for some reason, we just don't get along with any of them. But they don't get along with us. It's not that we don't try, it's that they actively try to not get along with us. I don't know what it is. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that well, because something, regardless whether other Ukraine war YouTubers get along with us, the only thing that matters is that the LSA keeps on marching forward. That's all that matters. It doesn't matter if we have guests on or what. Guests didn't make this channel. They didn't break this channel. This channel and the Lee Spring Army itself is what made this channel, and is what's going to break it. So we don't need guests at all, in my opinion. But with that, I hope that does address that quite well. And thank you once again for the support, Arrayas Martinez, and I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next super chat goes to Butchie777, another old guard, who throws in a $50 donation. And thank you very much, Butchie, for that support. And they said, I love you guys, and Gazlik Veliken, Shoigu, Jaga Jaga, LSA, Slav Ukraine.
And we love y'all too, Butchie777, and Geschlik Veliken in Deutschen Bankenstil, Jaga Jaga, and Shoigu, but nevertheless, thank you so much once again, and long live the Lee Spring Army and Slava Ukraini. And thank you for the support, Butchie777, and being one of our British LSA viewers. And I cannot wait to get the flag out to all of y'all. And so with that, thank you once again. And we are on to the next one. Intel to you said, sounds like you took it the wrong way about what I was saying a second ago. Here's what I'm going to say, Intel to you. You might be right. You were taking it the wrong way. But after 2 years of experience of thinking that I might be taking something the wrong way and then letting it slide and then getting slammed in the face by people time and time again, I'm pretty sure that we're not taking it the wrong way. The human mind is very good at picking up. The human mind is very good at picking up patterns that repeat themselves. And to be honest, statements and comments like that are standalones that look like you may be misunderstanding them, from my experience of dealing with multiple YouTubers over years, we're probably not. Hate to say that, hate to sound like a pessimist as far as that goes, but that's probably the unfortunate reality. And we just accept it at this point, but it still does like aggravate us a little bit. It's like, why even reach out or do anything like that? But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Pete from Texas, who puts in a $20 donation. And a very nice state you have, Pete. I like Texas. He says, thanks for your hard work, fellows. And I read a report that Ukraine turned down 41 FA-18 Legacy jets from Australia, and I don't believe it's true. But then why would Ukraine not accept them? Slav Ukraine, let's go, LSA. And I don't know why they wouldn't accept them either. I'm not sure if that is really the case or not. That report might be inaccurate because I haven't heard that. And, you know, that would be insane to turn down 41 FA-18s. Why wouldn't you accept that?
I think that is not true news, because from what I heard, the Australians entertained the idea of sending them, but for some reason they decided that it was never going to be possible. I don't think the Ukrainians turned it down. I think it's more so that the Australians made a unilateral offer that was not really accepted by the, wasn't like immediately accepted by the Ukrainians, because it never made it into actual real discussion. It was just kind of like, hey, wouldn't it be cool if we sent the jets to them? And then Australia then immediately went, nah, we can't. And then they just didn't send them. That's how I understand the story to go, but I might be wrong, but that's how I remember it all went down. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. But still, thank you, Pete from Texas, so much for enjoying this channel, and enjoying our hard work. I put in a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, and Matthew does too, into making this channel run every single day. It means a lot to us that we always get kind words from everyone, and everyone really does appreciate it. And of course, Slava Ukraini, and long live the Lee Spring Army. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $20 super chat from The Planet is Dying. And my goodness. But I think that's their first ever super chat, by the way, as well. And thank you very much for that support. They said, can we just agree the Ukrainians shot it down with the launching of missiles? Because if they didn't, the stupid Russians would not have fired off their air defense.
And thank you so much for the support. The Planet is Dying. And thank you for your first super chat ever. Now, to answer your question, I would say, well, let's see here. Can we just, I mean, we could, you could say that, but it's a bit of a stretch, because it's like saying, the burglar, well, actually, that's kind of how it works, like felony murder. I was about to go through pretty much explaining felony murder. It's like saying the burglar killed the infant child because the dad of the infant child shot through a sheetrock wall trying to shoot the burglar and ended up hitting his own kid and killing him. That actually would be felony murder, I believe. That would actually be put onto the burglar. So, I mean, yeah, I guess if you're going off of a felony murder rule, I don't know how in the world I even remembered that from law school, Matthew, because I think that is the correct interpretation of felony murder. If you went off of that kind of a rule in criminal law, that actually would apply there. So I guess the Ukrainians did end up shooting it down because they created the incident that led to the Russians shooting down their own A-50. And so with that, thank you for the support, and thank you for letting me look at that a brand new way, as Matthew is quiet on the felony murder rule. But with that,
I don't remember, man. I don't even want to think about it anymore. Screw that crap.
Man, I can't even remember. I can't recall.
I'm trying to block it out of my memory. If you can get PTSD from driving a truck around, you can get PTSD from law school at this point.
Man, you can, man, and we need therapy. But with that, thank you for the support.
But you really can't get PTSD from driving a truck around, and you really can't get PTSD from law school either. Let's be real here.
Nah, you can't get PTSD from a lot of things. People, you know what, Scoop? Like I've grown. By the way, y'all, considering that I am 22, I feel like according to our demographics, we grew up in a very different generation than most of y'all grew up in. Nowadays, it's very common for everyone on Earth to try and come up with a shopping list of like disabilities. That most of the time are just manufactured. Like, growing up in high school, I knew at least 50 people that claimed they had some kind of PTSD from really minor things. Like, it would be like, I almost got into a car crash, so I have PTSD when I'm on the road. And it's like, excuse you. So it's like that isn't really PTSD. I mean, if you got in a car wreck and you nearly died, yeah, you could have PTSD from that. But if it's like just a near graze, it's like, come on, that's just trying to really stretch what PTSD is. But beyond that, I hope that does address that well. But thank you once again for support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Vance Hicks, who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you, Vance, very much. He says, Enforcer, can you address the hypersonic missile issue within the context of U.S. progress versus Russia and China claims of success on them?
And let's see. hypersonic missiles, to explain the technology behind them, have been around since the 50s. The US was actually the first one to pioneer hypersonic technology, but we realized that it was wildly inefficient and ineffective over range because ICBMs could do the job a lot quicker. Hypersonic missile traveling at full speed across this entire flight path would take multiple hours to fly from America to Russia. I think it's something like 2 to 3 hours. An ICBM can do that flight in 15 minutes. So that's why we decided that it was completely a useless path to move down. But the Russians and the Chinese later on in the 70s and 80s, well, actually the Soviets in the 70s and 80s, kind of entertained the idea of a hypersonic missile. The Chinese never did until very recently. And now in the modern day, both the Chinese and the Russians are looking at trying to use hypersonic missiles as in a more tactical use, more so than in the strategic use like an ICBM would be used in. They're looking at trying to use a hypersonic missile to evade frontline air defense and hit intermediate or short-range targets not that far from the launch site. So I hope that does kind of address that well, because it's a misnomer that many people have nowadays that the US does not have hypersonic technology. We have possessed hypersonic technology longer than any other nation has on the planet right now. It's just that we decided not to use it because in our mindset, in our doctrinal use of the armed forces these days, there really is no room for a hypersonic missile. But we're starting to change our mind on that, really just to make it look like we are technologically up to speed with the Russians and Chinese, although we're way ahead of them. And so with that, I hope that does address that quite well. And thank you so much once again for the support, Vance Hicks, and helping this channel to keep on running. You are one of those old guards as well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Nova Stardust, who puts in a $20 donation and says, how much do y'all think our adversaries like Russia or the CCP affect our news and public opinion through misinformation campaigns and not necessarily just in politics?
A lot. It's actually a really high amount. And that's something that I have to be honest, I feel like a lot more clearly than most people see. Both sides in the United States in particular, because the United States is a very brand politics or a brand identity kind of a nation these days, where people have to feel like they live, breathe, eat, and sleep a single thing or a single brand of an item or a single object, which I find really weird. But beyond that, there are two different major kinds of thinking in America these days. Most people fall under one side or the other, and there's very few people who try to stay out of both of them, or at least look at both of them with equal disdain. And the thing I see is that one side is being directly influenced by the Chinese, and the other side is being directly influenced by the Russians. And it's a very clear look when you see it. And I can't really get into it a lot because it would break the no politics rule on this channel, although I'd be equally critiquing both sides. I feel like this would be a little too far, but I see that a lot. Because whenever you look at one side, like one side in America worships the Communist Chinese Party. For some reason, they act like they're a great group. And the other side demonizes the Chinese Communist Party and acts like they are the second incantation of hell on earth. The other side will largely lean towards thinking that the Russians are a great country, full of, like-minded people to them. And then the other side will sit there and act like the Russians are the second incantation of hell on earth. So it's kind of just vice versa, but the Russians influence one side, the Chinese influence the other, and nobody sees it anymore. And that's what's really interesting to me, is that nobody sees the foreign interference and the foreign influence on both sides anymore and tries to actively push them away. They actually embrace it and make it a part of that side's identity. And I see some people saying, wait a minute, the Chinese Communist Party has no fans in America. Oh, they do. If you didn't see Xi Jinping arrive in America recently, he had a lot of fans. I mean, it wasn't just people out there being paid to make it look like Xi Jinping was welcomed. He was welcomed. And if you ever saw Vladimir Putin arrive in America, which you will never see in the modern day, he would be welcomed in certain parts of America with open arms, with a certain kind of affiliation. Because that's just how it works these days. The foreign influence is that bad. But it really does affect everything. the political side of things is the strongest part, but it really does expand out into everything else. And I feel like the American public should be more so focused, instead of on embracing these two evil countries, pushing them away, because the Russian path or the Chinese path is not our path. An American path is the path that we should be going down. And the argument shouldn't be what Chinese or Russian path is best for America. It should be which version of an American path is best for the United States. But with that, I hope that does address that well, Nova Stardust, and thank you once again for the support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Made in Canada 182. Throws in a $20 donation and says, for the 2nd year anniversary, and can we get a visit from the Marmot to make up for his night off last night?
And we can. You know it. You know we can. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Hang on, let me get him. It takes a second to get this thing up here. Hello there. Hey, it's the freaking Marmot. Hello there. Would you like a plum?
Hello there. Can I interest you in some blood?
Aw, man. I'm really making an impact. Shut the hell up! But anyways, I love the Marmot. It's a great animal. I love to see it. And Made in Canada, you got it. It is the Marmot time. But still, thank you so much for the support, Made in Canada 182. I hope that does address that quite well. And also, just really, I don't mean to go on rabbit holes on every single super chat tonight, but sorry all of y'all are noticing that my voices are getting worse, or I'm not really doing them a lot. I've not been saying this even to Matthew, but my voice is actually getting really strained doing this now, and so it's really hard to try and do voices. So sorry about that, because I would love to do a lot of voices, but it's just really difficult to do them these days. But nevertheless, thank you so much once again, Made in Canada 182, for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And I hope that was what you were looking for. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
Oh, hello there. But anyways, moving on to our next one. We have a $20 super chat from Ed. And this is Irish Ed. He says, LSA, Irish Ed from Pennsylvania. And earlier you said you don't know if we are here unless we're in the live chat. And I watch you on Fire TV. And I can read chats, but I can't write chats. I have to grab my cell phone to chat. But anyways, I wanted to make you aware of that.
And thank you so much for sharing that with us, Irish Ed. And thank you for letting us know that you're watching. We know that a lot of people are watching sometimes, but they're just quiet. But the thing about that is that if we don't see y'all in the live chat, we don't know if y'all are here or not. And that's always something that makes us so sad, because we love to see the same people in the live chat night after night. It makes us happy because we're like, hey, so-and-so's here, and so-and-so's here. And then when everyone's here, we're like, the gang's all here. We're literally like that in our head. But still, thank you for letting us know, Irish Ed, that you are here tonight. And thank you for explaining why you're always here, but not here from what we know. But still, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Jesus UCSB yet again. He throws in that 20 this time and says, Hola. And just a reminder to my fans, under 18 U.S. Code, it is a felony to send threats to a federal employee. Stop Ukraine and long live the LSA Tank Battalion. And it's actually a felony, Jesus, if you send a threat over the internet across state lines. That makes it a felony as well. I'm not sure of the exact name of that offense. I think it's terroristic threats, interstate terroristic threats or something like that. But good point. And Enforcer, what say you?
And I think that's like specifically a violation of like the Interstate Communications Act or something. I don't know what it is. But beyond that, I have no idea what I'm talking about. But anyways, thank you so much for sharing that, Jesus UCSB. And that's something that a lot of people don't know, is that threatening people is something that is actually usually a felony. Shocker, I know. Like, if you threaten to knock someone's teeth out over the internet, or come down there and kill them, or come down there and even just batter them, that is a threat. Like, you know, and that is usually a felony. So I always find it so weird how people mouth off so much on the internet without really understanding the actual repercussions of that could come around if it's noticed, you know. And that's why we never make threats to other people, like threatening to knock their teeth out or go up to their place and try and rough them up, because that is not only immoral and also really insane, but it's also illegal. And so with that, thank you for sharing that, though, Jesus UCSB. I'm sure that none of them will still even understand that, but maybe one day because you're fed now, we can get the feds in and we can have them start dealing with these things. But still, with that, Slava Ukraine, and long live the Lee Spring Army tankers like you, Jesus UCSB, and the LSA Tank Battalion. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to AJ yet again, and this time he throws in a $50 donation once more. And AJ, thank you very much for the support. He says, since you brought up and discussed your struggles, remember that Andrew is ancient Greek for man, manly, brave.
Yes.
And also, Matthew in ancient Greek means gift of God. Although that's pretty high praise, and I don't think any Matthews are deserving of that.
Matthew, I think many people in the LSA would say that you are a gift of God. But still, beyond that,
man, that's too high praise right there. Too high praise. The Greek were wilding with that one.
Man, the Greek really were going crazy though. But AJ, thank you so much for the support, and that is true. My struggles. Wait a minute. Backtrack. My problems. They always get minimized because in reality, it doesn't really matter if we get along with YouTubers or not. Because the thing is that today alone, and let me check this just to make sure that I'm saying this correctly. Today alone, we've still gained 100 subscribers today, and it's the lowest day that we've had in a month for subscriber count. So it's like, does it really matter if YouTubers like us or not? No, it doesn't. Because unlike other people who admit that they're so boring that the only way they can grow their subscribers is by getting shout-outs from other YouTubers, we don't need to do that because we're just interesting enough and we cover the news well enough that people subscribe just because they like it. And so going off of that, thank you for sharing that. And also, the reason why I was named Andrew is because Andrew is one of the disciples in the Bible. Actually, Matthew and me were both named after disciples in the Bible. So that's where our names come from, in case if y'all were ever wondering, why are they called Andrew and Matthew? That's why. But with that, I hope that does address that very well, and thank you so much once again for the amazing support, AJ, and making sure that this channel is able to keep running, and it is still possible thanks to folks like you. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Marius Holton, who puts in a $20 donation and says, Norwegian spell check messed up my last message on Friday. Black Hornet drones are donated by Norway, and your LSA flag/insignia rocks, not suck. Insomnia sucks.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Marius, for the support. And thank you for correcting that. Spell check does have a way of messing with people. I call it autocorrect, but spell check is the right way to say it. And it just messes with people. It messes with me all the time. But also, that is cool to hear. I didn't know that the Black Hornets were donated by Norway. I thought they were donated by America. But nevertheless, I do have to say, that LSA flag is fresh as hell. And a huge shout out to Torosaur for designing that flag, because it is a great one. And I can't wait to see it flying all over the place. It's going to be really cool. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And thank you for being here with us tonight. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Panama Floyd, who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, Panama, as well, for that support. He says, one from the chat, please. And y'all already covered the stuff I was going to ask. And that means we did our job well.
And thank you for the support. And we will make sure to grab one from the chat. And thank you, Panama Floyd, for being here with us tonight. You are also an old guard as well, and an absolute legend. But what do we have for a live chat, Matthew?
And the live chat goes to Avari Mendebratis, who says, Enforcer, could a THAAD, a THAAD, have hit the aircraft from Ukrainian airspace in theory?
From what I understand, no. Because the THAAD has a range of 200 kilometers, which is about 120 miles. And if we take a ruler and we measure where that A-50 went down and where the nearest Ukrainian front line is, that A-50 went down about 185 miles away, 190 miles away, most likely. And so going off of that, it would be out of a THAAD's range. And that's why I'm saying it can't be an S-200 that shot that thing down. Because are people reasonably going to believe that a 60-year-old missile can be modified enough that it can be launched from 180, 190 miles away and end up hitting its target and destroying it when America's most advanced and most capable air defense system could not even get anywhere close to reaching out that far? That's why I find it so unrealistic, the S-200 story, beyond a Russian friendly fire story, because, like, come on, like, I get it, the Ukrainians are pretty good, but they're not good enough that they're going to be able to modify a 60-year-old missile to far outperform what the most advanced American air defense system could ever do. And so I hope that does address that well, at least in my opinion. And thank you for sponsoring that live chat, Panama Floyd. And I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to Aaron Shu, who puts in a 20. He says, I've been here for a while now, and I don't think we've had a marmot time in a while. And take a question from the chat.
And we haven't had a marmot time in a while. We haven't had it for 5 minutes. It's marmot. Hello there. Would you like
Hello
a plum?
there. Would you like a plum? Or could I interest you in a single plum or 2 plums?
Or could I interest you in a hot dog? Aw, man. And the marmot said, I'll take a hot dog, good sir. Give me 1 hot dog, extra relish. Can you do that? Oh, man, if I can only pull my senses together. Oh, man, I might be able to pull together 1 hot dog for you, marmot. Oh, man.
What the hell is wrong with that thing? But still, beyond that, I hope you enjoyed the marmot time, Aaron Shu. International Shoe. Matthew, that is a famous case. Oh god! Dude, for some reason I'm getting like flashbacks of law school. It's giving me nightmares. But anyways.
Can you get PTSD from law school? Can you get that? Am I not knowledgeable about this?
I think there will be an exception. You can get PTSD from law school. People have become alcoholics because of law school. Like no lie, people that we knew are alcoholics and they've admitted, yeah, I started drinking because of law school. And I'm like, dang, that's rough. But still, with that, hope that does address that well. Thank you so much once again for the support, Aaron Shu. And we will make sure to get one from the live chat, Governor. And so what do we got?
And the live chat question goes to O-Tubes, who says, has the U.S. shot down the spy balloon yet? And here's the scoop on that. The thing flew over Colorado and some sites where, you might get concerned if it flew over these places. So the U.S. sent up an F-16 to check it out. They went up there, they looked at it and said, that looks sus. Then they went back to the ground, and then they figured out that the balloon was actually, allegedly, this is according to the U.S. government, so take it with a grain of salt, it was a civilian weather balloon or a research balloon of some type. And it wasn't from China this time, and they just sort of let it fly away. So, if you believe that, you can feel free to believe it if not, but nobody shot it down. I think it's still flying. So, it is what it is. But Enforcer, what say you?
And I'd have to say, I'd have to say, a very interesting dissertation, Matthew, about this balloon being an amateur's. I would have to say, we need to go get to the Royal Flying Club, because apparently we have a new member. And also, who the hell is this asshole going off in the chat at you, Matthew? Like, really, I got distracted.
I'm leaving them there because I was going to get them in the chat. I felt like going after this one, so I left him alone. I'm going to keep going for a while.
Yes, I don't know who the hell that is, but goodness gracious, they've got a bit of issue. Hopefully that's not the certain person that we've been hearing about that supposedly also runs.
No, it's not that one.
Okay, good. I was about to say, if so, I was about to be like, see, everyone, notice the headlock. I was about to start going into that, Matthew. But still, with that, I hope that does address that well. Thank you once again for the support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a $50 super chat, a big one, from Trister1. And thank you very much, Trister, for that massive support. He says, the more I think about it, wait a minute, hold on. The more I think about it, the more I think the U.S. slowing munitions to Ukraine is a pressure point on Europe to stand up and produce, which are very capable of.
Let me make sure to read that where it's legible, because I know why you're reading it that way, but I'll read it the way that we can.
I think it might have gotten lost in translation.
I think it's an autocorrect issue, or he was typing it really quickly. But the more I think about it, the more I think the U.S. is slowing munitions to Ukraine as a pressure point on Europe to stand up and produce, which the Europeans are really capable of. And that's what the super chat's saying. It was just really garbled. But beyond that, I do thank you so much for the support, Trista1, legend of the channel. And also, that might be it, but the thing is that I don't think so. Because it seems as though this is being like the Ukraine issue is now tied to a domestic issue. For everyone who is following the political side of things here in America, it's now being tied to a domestic issue, and it isn't being tied to, we don't think the Europeans are doing their part. It's being tied to something that has nothing to really do with Ukraine at all. And that's why I'm thinking that it may not have to do with that, although that would probably be the best argument for us slowing down our support, because the other one doesn't make any sense at all, because it's like, how in the world are these two things even tied together in any real practicable sense? And they don't. But with that, I hope that does address that quite well. And thank you once again for the support, Tristan, helping this channel to keep on running, because folks like you make it possible. And so with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you once again.
And our next super chat is going to go to Retail Mix USA, who's another longtime channel legend and old guard himself. He throws in a $10 donation, and thank you very much for that. He says, Enforcer, what if pro-Ukrainian Russians or Ukrainians infiltrated the Russian air defense unit, and that might explain what Ukraine is trying to say?
It may. That is not out of the question. It's very. It would be very difficult. It would take a while of putting a plant in there. He pretty much have to have been in there since the beginning of the war and then taking his chance. But as far as that goes, that could be what they're trying to say. But the Ukrainians have been very clear with their story that it was a modified S-200 that was fired from inside of Ukrainian territory at the A-50. But that could also be something that may have happened, although I'm feeling like the percentage chance of that is quite slim, maybe down in the single digits, but still not impossible. And so with that, I hope that does address that quite well, and thank you so much once again, Retail Mix. And Matthew, this bot is saying very interesting things, you know, because it's saying something, Matthew, if you remember, was brought up 4 years ago when we weren't even on YouTube, and we were doing something else.
Oh, you know, I'm not actually putting any credence into this. I'm just doing it because I'm just, you know, I felt like fighting a bot. I hate to admit it, but honestly, I have a streak in me. It's a bad streak. A part of me, I hate to say it, likes to do a little bit of fighting. That's kind of why I was like, maybe I'll do good at Lost, because I like to do that on the side a little bit. I don't like to let that consume my life like some wackos out there do, but all of us have that little fighting streak, and I don't know. This one, for some reason, triggered me, and I was like, let me bat this one around a little bit. This is that bot bullying that we used to do back in the day, but I'm only doing it on rare occasions now. I'm trying to get off that addiction. Actually, I'm trying to recover.
And also, another thing that is just so interesting is when people say that they didn't need debtors' money to do something, they say that it's us. I don't think you understand. We've been paying rent to live in our parents' basement for years now.
Oh, man, don't start trying to justify yourself to that bot. Come on, man, don't do that.
But the thing about that, man, is just like such a stupid comment, you know? But I will say this. I'm always happy to entertain stupid comments, but if you say a stupid comment, you must come to Alabama and say it to me in person. Don't say it over the internet like some cow. Oh, get your hands off mine. but still, really, I'm serious. I'm totally fine with people saying crap about us, but don't say it over the internet. Say it to me in person, because I like to actually see you say it. But with that, hope that does address it well. And I'm not saying that to sound like a badass either. I'm just saying, you know, don't say crap unless you're going to say it in person. I don't mean to ever sound like some kind of a punisher or something, but nevertheless, I'd like to see you try and say that in person, because I have a feeling that they wouldn't. But anyways, hope that does address it quite well indeed. And we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next we have a $10 super chat from Hoodoo, Texas, of all people. Thank you very much, Hoodoo, for that support. He says, give them the third best to go on with. The second best comes too late, and the best never comes. That was a quote. Robert Watson Watt, the inventor of the British World War II radar chain.
And yes, I would say that is quite correct, old boy. And let's see here. The inventor of the British World War II radar chain. Very good radar chain, as a matter of fact. But nevertheless, I would agree with that. Usually, it's never the best that goes to war. It's usually second, third best. And then usually the cream of the crop is in very limited numbers. But with that, I thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And proper fellow saying drop the Addy. Listen, I know where you came from, pal. The Addy is right out there. We've been doxxed a million times. Everyone knows where we live. So I'm not going to give you the address. Go find it, dunce. But anyways, with that, it looks like we're going to have a new Chris's mom here, and it's going to be Prepper's mom.
Man, you can't keep up with this brawl in the chat, man. You're getting all distracted.
No, I must keep up with it. Yeah, we must keep up with them. But anyways, if we're entitled, I'll show you entitlement, old boy. Come on down, old boy. Please, by all means. But with that, we are on to the next one.
Also, by the way, I gotta say this. I'm just playing around here, but don't only if you're in high school say drop the Addy. Don't say Addy. Addy is short for address, by the way. And people said that at our high school, and I haven't heard that ever since I've left. So that pretty much clues me into this person's, education level. They only graduated from high school, and that's fine. But don't come in here saying drop the Addy. Please use some adult language here.
You know what he's about to say? He's about to say pull up then. Watch. He's about to say he's about to put it in the chat. He's about to say pull up then.
No cap.
Hey, Matthew, isn't that person that was, wandering about? Maybe this is that person.
Who's that?
Oh, you know who.
You know who?
Pizza delivery.
Oh.
Yes.
No, I don't know. Hell, I don't know. I wouldn't know that.
Hey, you talk like that all
also,
the time.
He's using the word chomp as well. Man, chomp. I mean, get the hell out of here with these old insults, man. What the hell? Drop your address, good sir. There you go. That's more like it. Yeah, that was very uncommon. He had to put it in all caps, so he's not used to talking like that.
Yes, look at that.
Wait a minute. Whoa, what?
What?
Oh, okay. I see what you're doing. I see what you did.
Yes. But with that, I hope that does address that quite well indeed. But nevertheless,
he's trying to stand on business, good sir. He's trying to pull up no cap.
He's trying to pull up no cap, buzzing. But come on, old boy, don't talk all of this talk. You could easily get over the live chat right now and start driving this way, good man. I'd be more than happy to receive you. But with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and moving on from the Addy, we're moving on to our super chat question here. It goes to Bruce Clunch, who throws in a $10 donation. And Bruce did not leave a comment on this super chat, but thank you very much for that support, as usual. And I think that might be one of Bruce's, either his first super chat or one of his first ones. So, Enforcer, what say you?
And I have to thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. It is folks like you who make it possible. And if it wasn't for you, we wouldn't be able to be here right now, getting in this absolute bout of fisticuffs in the chat. But nevertheless, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that quite well. And dilly-dilly, old boy, dilly-dilly. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Sully Canuck, who puts in a $10 donation and says, "Hi, boys, and always know you have great work. And I'm wondering if you think we'll hear anything bad from Belarus."
I don't really think so. Hopping out of the accent for a second and get a little serious, I don't really think we're going to be hearing anything that bad out of Belarus because Lukashenko has been doing the bare minimum of any kind of real change or action, so that way he doesn't disrupt the status quo of Belarus. Because we already know that the military is almost on the verge of overthrowing Lukashenko. We heard that very early on in the war, and that's why they never got directly involved. Although clearly in week one, it was easily seen that they were going to be getting involved at least by the end of that month until things went south, and then they pulled out. And then we also heard that the Belarusian military threatened to overthrow the government, and then they decided not to go in at all. So going off of that, I don't think we're going to be hearing any bad news because Lukashenko is doing enough to make sure that they do not get involved in anything. But with that, I hope that does address that quite well. And thank you once again for support, Sully Canuck. And out there. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to Top Flight. He throws in a $5 donation and says, "Long time, first time. And I got 5 for the fundraiser tomorrow, and appreciate you guys. And LSA is active from Bakersfield all the way down to San Diego, LSA." And that's what I'm talking about. We got LSA chapters all around the world, including the United States, and they're representing. So, Enforcer, what say you?
Let's see here. Bakersfield is somewhere down here, from what I recall. There it is, Bakersfield right there, all the way down to San Diego. Pretty much all of South Cali. Oh, goodness, that is quite a large number of people who are part of the Leespring Army. And I got to say, Top Flight, thank you so much for being here with us, and thank you for telling us that all of Southern California is here with us tonight. And thank you once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, and we appreciate you. We appreciate you greatly, and thank you for your first support in the history of the channel. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to Carrie Ann Corzo, who throws in a 5 and says, "I've been watching with my husband Nick. since the beginning, but I just joined last night, so I can do my part to support, and doing great, guys. And thank you very much, Curry.
And look, it is Nick still thinking LSA's wife, Carrie Ann. He actually mentioned you last night, Carrie, believe it or not. I don't know if you were watching last night or not. I believe you were, actually. But nevertheless, I do thank you so much for being here with us tonight. And it's cool to know that we actually have couples who watch the stream together. High honor, actually. High honor. And I'm glad to know that I'm able to be with all of y'all all the time, and hopefully making y'all's nights more enjoyable as they pass. But nevertheless, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that quite well. And with that, we are on to the next one. But thank you for saying that we're doing great. I think y'all are doing great, sticking with this channel for 2 years. And with that, thank you so much once again. And we are on to the next one.
And also, Enforcer, I just want to tell you, I was actually being very generous to this bot. I let him say his last words before he got banned out of the chat. He said his last words, and he went out in bold fashion. I have to commend him for that. He went down hard. But at the end of the day, the most hurtful, the most absolute gut-wrenching thing for that guy is he stayed here for our enjoyment as long as I wanted him to stay, and then he was removed. And he was removed at my whim, actually. And now he's sitting over there frothing at the mouth thinking, I could go create a fake Google account and jump back on there. Or I could actually maybe go to sleep and actually get back on my meds and maybe get back to normal.
Or
I would recommend the latter. Yeah, you can come down here. I wouldn't recommend that option, though. I wouldn't recommend that one.
No.
Because that is, no cap, that would not be busting at all. There'd be other things happening, but it wouldn't be busting. But anyways, moving. No cap. But anyways, our next one goes to Alan Orchard, who puts in a 5 and does not leave a comment. But thank you very much, Alan, for that support. And Enforcer, what say you?
Thank you so much, Alan. You didn't throw in a comment, but the support is incredible, and it means a lot. Folks like you, Alan, enjoy the channel enough and want to see it keep running. And so thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to CK Bold, who throws in a 5 and says, take a live chat. And it's the usual. It is indeed. And we're going to jump into that live chat question sponsored by CK Bold. And this one goes to JT, who says, do you guys know what became of War Stash from Belarus?
We don't know. The last time we saw him on picture evidence was about 3.5 months ago, and I haven't seen him since. But it usually is pretty long times in between now, where we see him show up and then not, and then he just kind of disappears. So, to be honest, he's probably still out there. He's probably fine. It's just that we haven't heard anything about him or seen much about him since the last time. And so that, hope that does address that well. And thank you once again, CK Bold, for sponsoring that live chat. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Rhonda Murray, who throws in a 5 and says, I've been watching since the beginning, and thank you so much. And take a question from the live chat.
And thank you so much, Rhonda Murray, for enjoying this channel. And thank you so much for watching since the beginning. It's really cool to know that you're one of the old guards. And we will make sure to take a question from the chat. And so what do we got, Matthew?
And the question from the chat goes to Miss Disa, who says, many reports that modified S-200 extended range, and how it hit the A-50 without interception is another question.
Can you reread that one again?
Says, Enforcer, many reports that modified S-200 extended range, and how it hit the A-50 without interception is another question.
That's my thing. And also, another thing that I'd like to show, and let me see here. We actually have the flight path of the A-50. Here we go. Here was the actual orbits that the A-50 was taking according to information that people were able to gain. And it's showing something fairly interesting here. And let me see if I can show this to y'all. So, the aircraft veered off course a very short time before the missile actually hit it. Because it was flying in orbit up here, and you see that orbit, the track it was running, and then it veers off hard right here and starts moving south. And that's showing, like, and I would say usually that was probably showing that it was trying to get away from the missile and get distance in between it. But the thing is that it turned away so early, like, well, actually so late, sorry, correction, so late, because that missile going at Mach 2 over 120 miles, I mean, you got a good several minutes before that thing is actually going to make it to the A-50. And it kind of turned off, and let me make sure that we have the timestamps here. 8:44, 53, 45, 53. You can see that it veered off its course and was then shot down in less than a minute. in that amount of time, and because you have to remember that this thing is an AWACS, it is an early warning system, so it's supposed to be able to pick up this missile pretty much from when it's launched to when it's about to hit this A-50. It doesn't pick up this Ukrainian S-200 that is easily seen on radar, especially on an EWS radar on this aircraft, for nearly 180 miles until the last minute before impact. That seems a little bit weird to me. And I think, once again, that is adding a lot of credence from the timestamps we're seeing here on this radar, that without a shadow of a doubt, it was a Russian air defense system that picked up this jet, started to lock onto it, which gave it only its minute window to try and evade, and then it got shot down. Because otherwise, I would bet money that it would have picked up the Ukrainian missile coming in all the way from Zaporizhia, because Russian technology is backwards, but EWS systems, they're kind of a little standard across the board, even for the Russians. They would have been able to pick this thing up being launched all the way from Zaporizhia, and they probably would have been flying south for many minutes before that missile would have ever made it over Russian airspace. So that's another thing that's kind of adding another layer to me, that there's no way that this was a Ukrainian S-200. It was probably, once again, a Russian S-300 that accidentally fired at the A-50 thinking it was an enemy aircraft. But with that, hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Ben Harrison, who throws in a $10 donation. That is his first ever super chat. And he says, thanks, guys. And huge shout out to you, Ben, as well. I presume it wasn't the bot fighting that got you to put in that super chat. I think it's probably the news. But thank you very much, Ben, for that support. And Enforcer, what say you?
And thank you so much for the support for the CAP Fund. And we love hats, and we love capping. Well, actually, we don't love capping, but we'll cap if we have to. Capping on God, bust. But still, thank you so much for enjoying the great work. And Slava Ukraini. And thank you once again for helping this channel to keep on rolling. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Bob Anon, who puts in a 7 and says a couple of bucks for the Cap Fund and go buy a hat. And great work as always, guys, and Slava Ukraine.
I read the wrong one. I read Bob Anon's just right then. Who was the last super chat?
The last one was Ben Harrison, who threw in his first ever super chat and said, thanks, guys.
Oh my God, I'm so sorry, Ben Harrison. I read the wrong one. I had them in the wrong order over here. But still.
It's Ben and Bob. They could open up an ice cream place, Ben and Bob's.
That would be really good. But thank you so much, Ben, for your first support to the channel ever. And thank you so much for the kind words and appreciating it. I accidentally read the wrong super chat right there, and I thought I was talking to you, but I was actually talking to Bob. But with that, thank you so much once again. And moving on into Bob's, thank you so much for the Cap Fund. I already addressed yours just a second ago, but still, thank you so much once again. And we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Ed yet again. He puts in a 5 and says, how do I become a channel legend? And LSA peeps.
You become a channel legend by being in the live chat all the time, or super chatting. And, you know, super chatters become legends. And, well, actually, it's not just super chatting. That's actually a really big abbreviation to that. It's super chatting or fundraising, because there are a lot of people who became channel legends by fundraising and also super chatting. Mark the Kinetic Possum is probably one of the biggest ones that has been around recently. Mark the Kinetic Possum has thrown in tens of thousands of dollars to the fundraisers on this channel, and not only that, has also supported the channel greatly through loads of super chats. And so he became a channel legend that way. But really, I would have to say, channel legends really don't form out of super chats, come to think of it. They really more so form out of the people who donate to the fundraisers on Sundays. And also Herd of Corgis is a channel legend as well. And I don't think Herd of Corgis is super chat to the channel a lot, but we still call them a channel legend. And that, once again, adds more so to the claim that is for the fundraisers being a channel legend more so than super chats. But with that, I hope that does address that quite well, and thank you so much once again. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Bruce Lee, who throws in a $10 donation and says, hello there, sharing some pizza tip money to go to the pizza fund there. And let's hear that next chat question and keep up the good work.
Thank you so much for adding to the support, and thank you so much once again for wanting to hear that next chat. But still, thank you so much once again, and we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Jason Pate, who puts in a 5 and says, thanks for 2 years of excellence. And here's a little something for the coffee fund. And can you see when I first started watching the stream? ?
And sadly, Jason, we wouldn't be able to see that. It's usually up to the viewer's individual record keeping, because sadly, it doesn't give us an itemized list of all of the viewers who watch certain things. We only get like an overall number, and then we know people were here or not based off of when they were in the live chat. So sadly, I wouldn't be able to get you that exact day, but maybe you can go back and be like, I've never seen this stream before, so it was the day before, so I joined then. But beyond that, thank you for enjoying this channel so much, and thank you for supporting the Coffee Fund and congratulating us on covering this war for 2 straight years. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to LSA Sergeant Figman, who throws in a 2 and says, LSA, hit the like button. That's an order.
And thank you so much for calling everyone to hit the like button. I love people hitting the like button, Governor. Really helps us out a lot. But still,
smash it.
Smashing, Governor. But still, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Eric Kress, who puts in a $2 donation and says, do Russian aircraft not have IFF systems?
IFF systems. 1 second. My brain is short-circuiting. IFF. 1 second. Hang on. Hold up. Oh my lord, I'm an idiot. It's the identification things, like the little infrared squares. But I don't know if the Russians actually have those or not. I don't think they do, because they have an excessively high rate of friendly fire. Even with the IFF systems that the United States had in the Gulf War, we still had a decent amount of friendly fire instance. So, you know, going off of what the Russians have done friendly fire-wise, I'd have to guess that they have no IFF systems that are uniform across the board for every single system. So I hope that does address that well, and thank you so much once again for the support, and sorry for being an idiot, because I knew that earlier in the stream, because as soon as I pulled it up and I saw what it was, I was like, oh my god, I'm stupid. It was earlier in the stream, I knew what it was, but now it's gotten late, and my brain wasn't firing quickly enough, and I was like, what the hell is an IFF? But with that, I hope that does address that well. Thank you once again, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and this one is going to go to Phil A. And he does not leave a comment, but he puts in a 2, and thank you very much, Phil, for that support. And Phil, you're going to bring us right into the live chat segment and the Morse code decoders of the stream first, which tonight were Cliff Simonson, Mark Hodges, Earl Bernew, Paul Schultz, Kevin J., Rumpelstiltskin, Toxic Bananas, Tightlines LSO, and David Millsaps. They said, Enforcer, tonight's Morse code copy is a very lengthy coordinates here, and long live the LSA. And also, by the way, Enforcer, I put these coordinates in, and it comes up in the Bonga region of Ethiopia. So is that where you were trying to really put it?
No. No.
It's Ethiopia.
So it was actually on this specific building right here in Saloka Balka, which that is the coordinates right there.
Oh, I think, let me see if it's the same. Oh, 34, 38, 35.7. They're close, but they're not identical. Oh, actually, they're much different, because I think they might put a dollar sign in place of a number. That's why it's popping up in the Bonga region.
Man, yeah, we getting them bongas, but nevertheless, that's the sound of money, and y'all got the dead on the nail. That was the Morse code message of the night. I'm assuming that the Russians are probably using this as an operational base, but you know, don't take my credit on that, y'all. I'm just throwing down some stuff, just kidding around, you know, being a little silly YouTuber, but still. Beyond that, that was the Morse code message, and congratulations for getting that correct on the first day of the 3rd year of the war. And so with that, hope that does address that well. And we are on to the live chats, but due to time constraints tonight, because the stream is now 3 hours and 30 minutes long, sadly, we'll only be able to get to a limited number of live chats. Before we do that, though, I do want to thank everyone who threw in a super chat. It is absolutely crazy how sometimes we end up running out of time to do a lot of live chats because so many people wanted to support the channel. I got to thank all of y'all for that, because nothing forces y'all to support the channel. It's something that y'all do just because y'all care. And we are always greatly appreciative to every single one of y'all for your support. And we are more than happy to spend an hour and a half worth of time addressing each and every one of y'all's questions and comments, and also y'all's support. And thank y'all individually for being the oil that greases the gears of this channel and helps it to keep rolling. And so with that, we are into the first live chat of the night.
All right, and we actually only have 2 in the spreadsheet left, so this one is going to go to, let's see here, Avari Mendebradas, who says, how likely would it be for the U.S. to give Ukraine retired TICO cruisers and OHP destroyers?
Probably pretty unlikely. We usually never give away ships. We usually only let people buy them. Like, for example, the Argentinians with the Belgrano, which was sunk in the Falklands War, they actually ended up having to buy that from the United States. And that's usually how we do that. So, to be honest, it's not out of the question if the Ukrainians want to pay, but I don't think we'd ever give those away to the Ukrainians. And so with that, I hope that does address that well, and thank you. Huge shout out to Halligan218 who threw in $1 and a hot dog. Dude,
hot dog, look at that!
Look
a
at
hot
that.
dog!
Sam, what you doing with that hot dog, Sam? But nevertheless, thank you, Halligan218, for wrapping up the super chat tonight. That is a sick one. I love it. And with that, we are on to the final question of the night. And so, who is lucky last person to throw in the lucky last question of the night?
And that viewer is Thomas Rosalinsky, who says, "Would you guys think the German Taurus will make a special guest appearance, slung under the wing, when the F-16s arrive?"
Oh yeah, you know it will, Thomas. And that's actually the question right out of the live chat here, like plucked clean, fresh. But I think they certainly will show up because the F-16 can carry them, and if the F-16 can carry it, the Ukrainians are going to load it onto those F-16s and use it that way. But it's probably going to be the most effective way to field the weapon. And so with that, I hope that does address that question well, Thomas. You got the last question of the night. Really cool. And with that, we've reached the end of tonight's stream. It is absolutely incredible to know that we were able to spend a whole 3.5 hours exactly, right when I was saying that, getting to talk to all of y'all about the news that went on today and getting to talk to y'all personally about y'all's questions, comments, and just really getting to all fangirl over being here tonight with all of y'all and y'all being here with us. It is very special thing that the Lee Spring Army has here, hanging out together every single day. And as we go into the first day of this third year of the war, I know one thing, that as long as we all stick together and as long as we keep our spirits high, we will be able to make it through this war. Ukraine will be able to make it through this war, and we'll all be here for the victory that will come around at some time in the future. Thank you all so much once again for watching tonight. If you're new and you enjoyed, make sure to subscribe. We run this stream 6 days a week, except for Mondays, every single day at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. You can always find us here on air, unless if it's Monday. And we're always covering the past 24 hours of the war in picture and video evidence. So whenever we say anything on air, we usually have some kind of a video or picture to back up what we're saying. And so with that, thank you all so much once again for watching. I will see you all tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern Time to cover the next 24 hours of the news of the war in Ukraine and also run the famous Sunday night fundraiser. Good night, good luck, stay safe, take care, Slava Ukraini, and long live the Lee Spring Army. The Lee Spring Army will never die.
And good night, folks. Thank you all for another great stream tonight, and thank you all for the support once again. And to all my bots out there, y'all get some rest too. Slava Ukraine, Hero Slava, and good night.
Yes. The Lee Spring Army sends its regards.
Русский военный корабль. Предлагаю сложить оружие и сдаться. Русский военный корабль, иди нахуй.